It's the show. Hi. Welcome to the Sunday show after dark. I'm Forrest. That's John. And it's already begun. You can't escape. It's already too late for you. We're here now. Boy, these past couple of weeks have been something. How are you holding up, my dude?
You know, every day is a fresh new hell that I wish wouldn't be a fresh new hell, but it is. I'm coasting through it, trying to keep my head about me, and just trying to do what I can as an online content creator, and that means I'm just making a whole lot of memes. Like that's pretty much what I'm doing.
It's a bad time. We live in hell, but at least we live there together. That's what matters most. We'll get through it. I did a cold open. I hosted AXP right before this, and I did a cold open there where we talked about sex and gender a little bit because, in case anybody isn't familiar, the Trump administration, Donald Trump passed an executive order declaring that sex and gender are synonymous, binary, and established at conception based on the production of germ cells from conception, which not only doesn't make any sense, but also flies in the face of modern science, completely eradicates the legal existence of not only transgender, but also intersex people, and also paves the way for aggressive anti-abortion legislation, which can now build on that and say that also personhood is at conception. If we can establish these concepts, such as sex and gender, from the moment you were conceived, from the moment the sperm meets egg, then we can now also dictate all these other things about your personhood and your rights and strip further rights away from anybody with a uterus. And what's even fucking scarier than that is that scientists at the CDC this weekend have reported that they have now been ordered to retract and revise any research that is published in any scientific journal that mentions terms like gender, LGBT, non-binary, assigned sex at birth, any of that. They have to scrub these illegal words from their research in order to allow it to be accessible here in America, to allow it to be science in America. They are destroying data and erasing evidence that goes against the hateful ideologies of the people in power. That is fucking Nazi shit. And there's a lot of people out there that are going to hear that and say, oh, well, everything you don't like is Nazis. Everything you don't like is... No, actually, the first books that the Nazis burned were from Magnus Hirschfeld's sexology clinic, the library that he had established on gender and sexual diversity. That library, that wealth of knowledge about gender diverse and sexually diverse people, about LGBT people of all stripes, that collection of knowledge was the first Nazi book burning. And here we are again with fascists attacking the same people for the same reason and in a lot of the same way. Because if they can convince you to hate somebody, they can maintain control over you. And it's hard to convince you to hate somebody when you understand them. So as long as they can limit your understanding and force you to conform to their simplistic, parochial, hateful, stupid worldview, they can convince you to continue to hate other people. Nobody is born without hate. They're with hate, pardon me. That's the exact opposite. I mean, nobody is born with hate. Nobody is born with prejudice. Hate and prejudice are built for us, and always by somebody who has something to gain from your fear and your anger. And in this case, what they have to gain is your compliance. So, as is always the case, this is the other thing I said on the ACA, and I'll say it here as well. We here on the line have historically always spoken up for LGBT people of all kinds. and we will continue to open our doors to any person who is seeking a loving secular community. And we will continue to open the lines not only to theists, but to creationists, flat earthers, anti-vaxxers, homophobes, transphobes, and any other science denier that wants to call in and defend their faith. That is what we are here for. That is what we have always done. That is what we will continue to do. Fuck Nazis.
I agree. I can't agree more. Fuck Nazis. Like, seriously.
The official position of the line.
So like I was wanting to add that one of the key things that was removed like from the CDC website was like information about HIV and especially how HIV has I guess disproportionately affected the LGBTQ community and like all of that. Like there's just so much crucial information that has been deleted from like US government websites. It's crazy what's being allowed to happen. I mean, so I put this on my page right before coming on the show tonight, but Elon Musk is an insider threat by definition. He matches all of the indicators for an insider threat, and people are just allowing him to do it. If anybody else were to do the things that he's doing, they would definitely be like detained and like questioned and everything. Like it would be a swift thing in the government. And I mean, I can say that because of personal knowledge about how swift the government can be in certain situations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's fucking shameful how little pushback this is getting. I will say, the war on science is not the only one that's going on. We also have a major issue right now with immigrants of all kinds. So what I've been doing to help out in my community, I ordered about 1,000 of these little red business cards here. You can get these from the Immigrant Legal Resource Center, ilrc.org. Go to their community resources or something like that tab. I'll put it in the chat here in a minute. And you can either order these yourselves, or they say that they are overwhelmed with orders right now. You can also download free PDFs and print them yourselves. These are two-sided. One side is in English. The other side is in just about any language you like. These ones happen to be in Spanish. On the Spanish side, it says, Usted tiene derechos constitucionales. You have constitutional rights. No abra la puerta. Do not open the door to immigration agents. No conteste ninguna pregunta. Do not answer any questions. No firme nada. Do not sign anything. Entrega esta tarjeta a la gente. Give this card to the agent. And when you do, on the other side, in English, it says, I do not wish to speak with you, answer your questions, or sign or hand you any documents based on my Fifth Amendment rights. I do not give you permission to enter my home or search my belongings based on my Fourth Amendment rights. And it goes on from there. These are constitutional rights, which, much to the chagrin of racists, apply to everyone, regardless of their immigration status. Everybody gets these rights because rights aren't rights if they're fucking conditional. You can also check out your local bar associations, law libraries, and whatnot. I don't know if this is still the case, but here in Oklahoma, it has been for a long time. Oklahoma Bar Association, you can get boxes of these pocket constitutions for legal education for free. And I've got few stacks of these guys as well laying around. And so I'm leaving these guys and these little red cards in piles at every Mexican grocery store and library and little Mexican bakeries that we have here around Tulsa. We have all sorts of great places that are immigrant owned, immigrant run. And whether or not those people are here with or without documentation, I don't fucking care. The law applies the same. They have rights, they have privileges, they have freedom. Here in the land of the motherfucking free. My parents were immigrants. My family's immigrants. My dad never naturalized. I have a dual citizenship. I don't know if anyone in my family or I would be allowed in this country under this bullshit new legislation where we are seeing people being detained by ICE simply for speaking Spanish. For speaking another language, people are being detained. Native Americans are being detained. This is actually scary shit. And you, if you ever wondered what you would be doing in the early days of 1930s Germany, you're doing it now. So figure out what that looks like and what that should look like. And make sure that when you go out there and make some good trouble, that you are remaining safe helpful, and non-violent at all times. And be careful, by the way. Look up what an agent provocateur is. We saw back in 2020 with Black Lives Matter protests, we saw a man with a black hoodie, a mask, and a black umbrella going around smashing windows to show that the protests were so violent. And then later on, we found out that man was a white supremacist who was out there to discredit the organization, to discredit the movement. People who know that your cause and your message is unimpeachable will try to slither their way into your movement to cause damage and to cause violence and to make your actions not safe and not helpful and not nonviolent in order to make you look bad, because fascists don't like thinking and debating and arguing. They like destroying. So be aware of things like that, and be aware of people who look like you, dress like you, act like you, talk like you, carry the same signs as you, who are trying to convince you to become violent and hostile and not be helpful and safe anymore. Helpful, very important. So be very, very careful about those things. Keep your eyes peeled. Be safe out there, because those are your fucking streets and you run them. Man, we're going to have a great show today. Sorry, I just got a lot to get off my chest right now. It's. I don't mean to steamroll the beginning of the show. I feel you.
I've the entire week and weekend I've been railing on my Facebook page, you know, people are starting to get a little winded, you know, because of it. But I mean, I think that this is very important, and we need to talk about it, and we need to stand up for, you know, those that are in groups that we may not be a part of, but that we wholly support and we want to protect. So I totally agree with everything that you're saying, and I'm perfectly fine with you letting off whatever steam you need to.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. One last very quick thing. I know that we do have in the secular and skeptic community a lot of people who are anti this whole woke liberal agenda of race and of sex and gender and intersex people and stuff. I mentioned at the beginning, there's just one more thing that I want to throw out there, because I think our own community needs to be held accountable too. I mentioned at the beginning that the CDC scientists are being required to pull down and revise their own research if it mentions LGBT people. I just want to say, if you are in the skeptic community and you're applauding any part of that even a little bit, you're not a fucking skeptic, and you need to quit pretending like you are. If you are a skeptic, if you are a rational thinker, if you are a free thinker, if you are secular, if you are these things that we hold so dear, then you should want that research published so it can be debated and discussed and peer reviewed. That data should be available to be discussed and to move science forward, whether it's in the way you want or not. But if you want to destroy data rather than debate data, you're not a fucking skeptic. You're a coward and a fascist sympathizer. With that now, I will shut the fuck up for a minute.
Forrest, you have the link to that to where the people can get those cards and such?
Yes, thank you for reminding me. That is ILR, something like that. Community resources here. So here is the ILRC. Why is this way? What happened? Why is this happening? There we go. Here's the ILRC here. And here, if you go into their tab that says community resources, the top right thing says, here's these red cards. Here's that link as well. And you can scroll in here, and there's free downloads for printing your own cards, all sorts of PDFs there as well. Or you can go here to redcardorders.com and you can put in orders. I've got that link there as well. That is also in there. Khaleesi is also hard at work doing their job. Thank you very much. But those are all things you can look up very easily. And I've put the links in the description there as well. If anybody out there, you know, we have a really cool fucking community here at The Line. And if anybody watching this owns a printing press or like has access to a big printing company, maybe you work for one, and you want to do some good, print out 10 billion of those and start leaving them around. And ship me some. P.O. Box 1810, Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, 74013. Send me some of these red cards that you printed yourself and save me some money. And I will continue to distribute them. But make sure you distribute them in your town as well, wherever you live, because we need more people doing that. With that, now, actually, for reals, we got a show to do. let's start strong with Howard, no pronouns given, calling in from Spain, who is a theist who says the creation story of Genesis 1 through 7, specifically that one, we're going to talk about why, is more rational than the Big Bang. Let's talk to Howard. Howard, you're on the line with Forrest and John. How are you doing today?
Hi guys, thanks for having me on. Yeah, I'd like to say that, well, with common sense, the Big Bang Theory, it's our experience and common sense that explosions destroy, they don't create. So I'm looking at the Genesis creation story, especially Genesis 1 verses 1 to 7, because I can see 3 experiments and I can see 4 observations that support that worldview and that cosmology.
So,
right away, can we acknowledge?
I have some major problems.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think you and I are about to say the same thing. Why don't you start? I'll take some notes because I've got 3 major issues with what Howard has already said before we even get into the Bible.
Yeah, can we acknowledge that it wasn't like an explosion? Like that's how it was initially described, but it's not an explosion. It's a near instantaneous inflation of the universe, which is different from an explosion. So like, I feel like you're already coming at this from a very ignorant sort of position, at least ignorant on what the actual Big Bang hypothesis is, like what Big Bang Theory actually says. It seems like you just don't know.
Can I just ask a clarifying question about that? Isn't the big expansion due to a lot of heat? Or it wasn't the like minuscule point that expanded?
Was it due to heat?
Something?
Yeah, it involved heat, but it wasn't due to heat. No. So that's what John is pointing out here is that the Big Bang is a silly little moniker that has been given to this event. A lot of people, myself included, don't even like the name because it's very popularized and has caused a lot of confusion. But the Big Bang wasn't literally a bang. It wasn't literally an explosion. That doesn't make any sense.
Okay, a hot expansion. But let's be honest, you haven't got a working model. You've nothing physical. You've only got theoretical and mathematical.
So that's also not true. That's also not true.
Okay.
And furthermore, you said that explosions destroy, they don't create. You realize that is also that also doesn't make any sense when we're talking about something happening not only in space, but it is the expansion of space itself. Like you understand that if something were to, let's say there was this explosion, it blows particles all over the place, just super dumbed down, inaccurate for a idea of what the Big Bang was. But just for the sake of argument, we've now got empty space with stuff floating all over the place. Because gravity exists, that is still going to lead to the creation of stuff like stars and planets and stuff. So the aftermath of an explosion.
That's also
sorry, Forrest. I believe this guy does not believe in gravity.
Exactly. Well, it's not that I don't believe. I'm just open to gravity being something different, or maybe not even being necessary. I'm not really sure or here to debate that.
Howard, you're a ridiculous fucking person.
Sorry?
You're a ridiculous fucking person.
Well, I don't see any need for insults. I'd just like to go over the 3 experiments and the 4 observations and see what you think about them and how they relate to Genesis.
When you can't, Howard, I need you to understand. Like, I understand that you want to make some content out of this because that's what you do.
I honestly, I tell you,
use our stuff for content. No, hold on. Was not done speaking. I understand that's what the goal is, but you have to understand that when you call in and want to walk us through your new theoretical framework, and you cannot even not only dismiss effectively, but even like define and articulate what the standing scientific framework is. You don't even know what the science says. You think it's a literal explosion. Do you understand why we have no reason to then continue on with this call and to listen to your explanation from Genesis and all this stuff? If you're saying
I agree,
can debunk all of science,
a hot expansion. I agree with that. That's fine. I misspoke. I just want to talk about how sonoluminescence, a star in a jar, acoustic levitation, and cymatic are 3 different experiments that are reproducible. that go with "Let there be light"?
Care, because we also have
you're
even
not a
if I
truth
agreed
seeker.
with what you were saying, which I super don't, we have repeatable, testable experiments that demonstrate the validity of the Big Bang model. So, like,
Can you name
you've called
one?
in saying that we don't have anything. We have no actual
best-
understanding of this stuff. And then you said
No,
that it's a
no.
literal explosion, and that explosions only destroy things, not create things. And you've just demonstrated again and again and again that you have memorized some creationist talking points about science, and then come up with your own creationist talking points about what only specifically this one part of Genesis says, because Genesis chapter 2 says something completely fucking different. Like, it's just not worth anybody's time, dude.
Well, see, the thing is, I'm not a Christian. I'm just talking about that part of the Bible which I see evidence for in science.
Hold on. Let me stop you right here. Let me ask the real question, Howard. Let me ask the real question.
The Quran has a similar creation story.
Hold on,
John.
Howard. Okay, fuck it. I'm you. Listen, what we need to know, right? We have this natural explanation that is the Big Bang hypothesis, the Big Bang theory, right? It explains things, and we have other explanations for, prior to the inflation of the universe. We have natural explanations for these things that seem to be the most likely conclusions, considering how we've dealt with these God claims in the past. What we need to know from you is, where does a magical fucking wizard come into this? Because that's what you're proposing, okay? You're proposing that the universe needed a magical wizard in order for it to form. Point out exactly what, through these experiments or whatever you're fucking trying to point out here, which I will note that the experiments that you're going to propose are not going to be applicable now, because what we've been able to determine is that the natural laws of reality and all that kind of stuff start to break down, like the natural laws of physics, I'll say, start to break down the closer that you get to the inflation of the universe. And we also notice the same thing as we get closer to the event horizon of like black holes and things of that nature. So, like, you can't use an experiment now for how shit works now to test how things would have worked prior to the inflation of the universe. But I'm going to allow you to come back and tell us where a magical wizard casting an incantation, which is Genesis 1:1-7, fits into our understanding of the cosmos and of the inflation of the universe. So please tell me where that what is necessary for that, what explains that, what is your evidence to support that? Please tell me as I bring you off mute.
With pleasure. Thank you very much. So the idea of the solar luminescence experiment called Star in a Jar is that
You're just jumping back to your script.
No. I'm getting to John's point.
Oh my God! Have you written this down on Notepad or something, and you're just running through it?
I'm trying to tell you where God is. He's literally outside the waters above, which is what the sonoluminescence Star in a Jar experiment shows. When you get frequency sound,
I don't know if you know this, but flat Earth proponents. Hold on, Howard.
Chill out.
Listen, flat Earth proponents think that there's waters above us and waters below us and all this other kind of stuff. I don't know how much flat Earth you've dealt with.
I'm not a flat earther, bro. So
what shape is the Earth, Howard? What shape is the Earth?
I'm not sure. It could be dynamic. I'm not sure. I'm not here to argue with something I don't know. I'm a skeptic.
Howard, can you do me one favor? Can you do me a favor? Howard, can you do me a favor?
Wrong to be a skeptic? Is it wrong to be skeptical?
Please, Howard, can you please define the word theory for me? What's the word theory mean?
Scientific theory, or are you talking about how the colloquial use is?
Scientific use. What does the word theory mean?
Something that's been approved, peer-reviewed, tested. It's something that, to the best of our knowledge, not a theorem, but it's a theory. It's the best theory to date. Like the Big Bang theory, should be able to be challenged.
The best of our knowledge, which is backed by what? What are all theories necessarily backed by?
Like I said, we try to experiment, we make observations, We peer review, we compare evidence, we compare other people's conclusions.
Theories are, by definition, backed by all the best evidence we have, and also can make testable predictions, and also are rooted in experimentation. Theories have been experimented on, tested, argued, like, these are what theories are and what they do. So when we're talking about the Big Bang Theory, so we're talking about the Big Bang Theory.
So far. What's the problem?
Right. When we talk about the Big Bang Theory, if you cannot tell me even the basics of what it says or what we know about it or how we know what we know about it, then I don't really think it's necessary for me to sit here and suffer through your explanations of these other major ideas that happen to correlate with an Iron Age sex manual. It just isn't worth my time.
Well, if I may just quickly interject, John was talking about natural. John was asking for natural. How did you phrase it, John? You said something about natural practical experiments or something, natural evidence, natural explanations.
No. I was just mentioning how you claimed to have experiments to run now in order to explain things that happened prior to the Big Bang.
No, not prior to the. I don't believe in the Big Bang, bro. This is what I'm saying. You've got to just snap out your worldview and let me speak for a second.
No, fuck you, Howard.
Oh, okay.
Where did the universe come from?
Get triggered because you're
Where did the universe come from? Where did the universe come from, Howard?
I'm trying to explain that from sound coming through a bubble in water, it creates light. So I believe
where did the universe come from?
And the Quran says, and the Egyptians showed, we're underwater. That's why those.
Where did the universe come from?
What universe are you talking about? I'm talking about the biblical cosmology. I'm talking about
the universe that you currently live in. The Earth that you are sitting in this moment. Where did it come from, Howard?
Let there be light.
Right. Shit that you don't know anything about. It's weird that you chose to call in on a show hosted by a biologist and an engineer, and not any of the many shows where we have physicists on that can tell you about how sound doesn't create light, doesn't create planets, Howard. This is shit you don't know anything about, and you just have decided that these random passages that you particularly enjoy in a book all about how to cook meat and own slaves and shit, like that's the book that you've chosen, this one little set of passages that you can now say lines up with creation, but you, as a skeptic, don't know what shape the planet is, despite obvious experimentation that you could be running, even on your own. Don't know what happened, where the universe came from, despite stuff that you could be looking up, real actual data that real actual scientists have actually gathered, and you could be testing it for yourself. You, as a skeptic, aren't taking into account the actual data in front of you. You just think the word skeptic means you disagree with stuff. And the more important and big the stuff you disagree with, the more skeptical you are. That's not how skepticism works, Howard. I hope you got some good clips out of this because I'm fucking bored of it. It went from silly to obnoxious, and now it's all the way over to boring. Hopefully someday you can make some content of your own instead of just stealing from us. I'm going to move on. John, are you good?
Yeah.
Yeah. Bye, Howard.
I really can't stand. Well, and like he really wasn't even understanding like what I was saying, because like any of the experiments that that he could would run in how our universe operates now, which we've been able to show is different the closer you get to the moment of inflation. So like he just literally wasn't understanding like what we were saying about how wrong his experiments were. And I say that with heavy emphasis there, experiments.
Yeah, it's just, and to sit here and say all you have is math, theoretical physics, and that's all fairy tales. And then you're going to follow that up with, no, you don't understand. If God speaks into a bubble, you get a planet. Oh, I'm sorry, my fairy tales didn't hold up to that. Just absolute, like, what bothers me the most about it is just the arrogance, the sheer pig-headed arrogance to sit here and be like, no, you don't understand. I read 7 paragraphs, or not even paragraphs, 7 lines. I read 7 lines of a book about how to own slaves and have sex right. And now I understand stuff that fucking Brian Cox and Neil Tyson don't. You know what I mean? I get it now. Just, ugh. Get over yourself, dude. With that, we have other callers. Hey, can we do the thing, Amargan, where the audience can't hear, but we can hear for just 2 seconds? On line number 8/5. Amargan? Okay, cool. I don't know if you have the power to do such a thing. Okay, so we're going to bring this person on here for just a second. Can you set that up for me to make sure that we can hear this person, but the audience does not hear this person?
Should be.
Okay. We're talking to somebody who has their name listed as Salami, pronoun she, her, who is a theist who says that poverty is a choice and a lazy lifestyle. So just for 2 seconds, Salami, it's just you, me, and John here. The audience can't hear you. How are you doing? So, like, I gotta tell you, I can hear you just fine. The audience can't. You say that poverty is a choice and a lazy lifestyle, and you have your name listed as Salami. That sends some red flags to me. So, just out of curiosity, what point are you trying to make here? Mm-hmm. So because our audience is getting dead air right now, I'm just going to repeat. You said that you believe that people need to take responsibility for where they are, and that there's certain factors at play here that you would like to elucidate. Just out of curiosity, for you, if someone is born into poverty, why do you think it's statistically more likely that that person lives the rest of their life and dies in poverty as well? If someone is born into poverty, why do you believe that it is statistically more likely for them to live the rest of their lives and die in poverty as well? So what you just said was, I understand that there is such a thing as intergenerational poverty. However, poverty is still a choice. How do you square the circle between those two sentences? Let's go ahead and open this up, Amargan. I think we can go ahead and put this out to the viewers to listen.
Done.
Great.
Thank you. All right, Salami, go ahead.
Okay. So basically, my stance on this is just that people should be taking responsibility for, their circumstances on where they are. I think that effective decision making, no matter where you come from or where you are in life, is super, super important and can be made by anybody based off of how many resources we have. And I have one main example that I'd like to talk about today.
I have a different example that I would like to talk about. Let's take the most extreme kind of poverty here. Let's say someone is completely abject, like they're actually homeless. They're living under a bridge.
Okay.
They're born there. They have extreme poverty generationally. This person is now living out of a cardboard box under a bridge. How does this person pull themselves up by their proverbial bootstraps? What personal choices can this person make to pull themselves out of poverty?
Well, let me ask you one question. To begin with, are they male or okay? Well, this has to do with what you said. So, are they male or female in this hypothetical?
Why does that matter? Because you're talking about how this is all personal choices, and you certainly don't have any personal choices in being male or female. So what personal choices could anybody make?
As a woman, which half of the entire world, right, there are women, can take and use their body as a form of income. And this was actually done by Cardi B.
So you think that a personal choice... No, I understand what you're saying. I'm just going to reiterate. Okay. You're saying that if someone is homeless, the smart, responsible thing for them to do is to resort to prostitution in order to get themselves out of poverty.
I never said it was smart nor responsible, but I do believe that it is an option for someone who is stuck and has no other options. My point is
let's set that aside.
You can never say. I ran out of options. I had nothing to do. You can turn to God.
Yeah. So let's set that aside then for a second, because that's just silly. Let's focus on men then. Hold on, John. I swear to God, just give me 2 seconds. I'm so sorry. But let's set that aside for a second then, because that's fucking gross. And let's talk about a man, as if men can't be prostitutes. But whatever. Why would a man pull himself out of poverty while he's living under this bridge?
Why would he not?
Resort to prostitution. So you think that at the end of the day, you can always sell your holes. At the end of the day, you can never be poor, because as long as you got holes, you got an income. That's the argument you're calling in to present today?
At the end of the day, I'm saying because you always have that option, you can never say I was stuck. You can never actually say I had nothing,
Let's set aside just hold on a second. Okay. Let's set aside just how fucked up that is for a second. And let's pretend like what you're saying here is a rational thing that anybody could think is like a normal civilized thing to say. Say somebody goes out and they make real good use of their body and they make a bunch of money as a homeless person.
Okay, I don't see how it's uncivilized at all. I don't see how it's uncivilized at all.
I think that sex work is admirable work. I think that sex work is fine. Salami, I am still speaking. I'm still speaking.
My apologies.
I've never said anything negative about prostitution as a job. I think that sex work is work, and I think that sex workers should be respected and treated with dignity and respect. I don't think anyone should be forced into sex work by any means, poverty or otherwise. And here's the issue that I have with it is that if we're even going to agree that that's a reasonable thing to say that people should do, where do you suppose they should leave their stuff while they're out here doing this sex work? They can't just leave all their personal belongings unattended under the bridge for people to steal. Or do you think they should bring people back to the bridge to have sex with them?
No. To my knowledge, strip clubs have locker rooms.
So they go to a strip club and they get a job. So they go to a strip club to get a job at the strip club, right? How exactly do they shower and dress nice for the interview if they are living under a bridge?
And that's where public places come in. You can walk into any public mall, any public library, and there are sinks. And you're speaking as if people haven't done this.
And there are sinks.
There are
you want to take a Kentucky shower in a fucking sink?
Yes. So the solution to poverty in your mind, if this person is living under a bridge, so they need to pack up. This person is living under a bridge, so they need to pack up everything that they own and drag it to a public library to splash some water on their crotch so that they can go get a job as a stripper/prostitute. That is your solution to poverty. That's the personal choices that you think people should be relying on.
That's because that's what I said. That is the solution to poverty. That is not what I said. Okay. I'm just saying
that's your solution to this person's situation that you're seriously dragging out here. Also, in order to establish, say this person is successful. Say this person gets a job at the worst strip club anyone has ever heard of, where anybody can just mull in off the street with a Kentucky shower from a public library.
Cardi B is living that
over their back. Oh my glob, dude. They carry in all of their possessions. They're wheeling in a cart with everything that they own in it to shove it into the locker room at the back of the strip club so they can go sell some meat on stage to earn a living. What do they then do with the money? Because you need an address to open a bank account. So where do they keep the thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars of cash that they need in order to buy a house and a car and get themselves out of poverty? Where do they keep all that money?
As I stated earlier in this debate, there are lockers in these strip clubs, and I believe that that's a great place to store your
keep
because
money
you're
in the
also
locker.
you're also surrounded with other.
So if
other
you want to buy a house, you just keep the $10,000 in cold hard cash in the same strip club locker room as you keep literally everything that you own so that it doesn't get stolen on the street while you're splashing your giblets in the public library bathroom in order to get ready for work every day.
Yeah. It seems like you're under.
You have no excuse.
But you know what?
That's what you're saying, Salami. You're saying you. No, let Salami, just listen to me. I mean, what Forrest laid out there was just spot on, okay? Because, like, you're seriously saying that anybody that is either homeless or poor or is in a bad situation, you're seriously going to look them in the face and be like, I'm sorry, have you splashed water on your giblets in the public library, gotten a strip club job, or fuck some stranger in a back alley yet? Oh, well then you have no fucking excuse.
You know what? I'm slightly offended as I came on here believing that we'd have a real conversation about this, and me personally,
I'm offended. What are you talking about?
I'm offended.
I'm not done talking. Please.
I grew up on food stamps, dude. At no point was I a 16-year-old kid wishing that I had more food. Like, damn, I guess I better go down to the library and wash my dick.
So, Salami, you kind of sound like the kind of person. Hold on, Salami, you need to listen. You need to listen, okay? So, Salami, you kind of seem like the kind of person that would definitely try to convince a 14-year-old girl to join a Diddy, like Diddy off or whatever he fucking calls them. Like, yeah, I mean, seriously. I mean, I feel like you just don't understand like the dynamics of like, you know, everything that you're talking about here. It's just totally fucking ridiculous. And like for you to be like, I'm offended because you're not taking my dumbass position seriously. Yeah, we're not going to take your dumbass position seriously because you're literally telling people like, oh, if you're poor, then have you tried fucking somebody in a fucking back alley? Oh, you haven't? Then there's no reason you should be poor. Like, this is ridiculous.
I can't take your plight seriously. I understand you were born into poverty, but at the end of the day, you got holes and you got to use them. Like, it's so inappropriate and so fucking like the fact that you can be this uncompassionate about human fucking beings is seriously sick. You talk about you admitted to generational poverty. What about other transgenerational factors of poverty? What about abuse? What about addiction? What about like oppression of several different kinds? What about growing up in areas that are historically oppressed? What about growing up with historical or generational trauma? What about any of the other things that play into this shit? Do you seriously think that when it comes right down to it, sometimes, you know, depending on the circumstance of your birth, you just don't have the right to your own holes anymore. It's all about personal choices. And furthermore, like the whole fucking nonsense that you're going to hold tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars in a strip club locker room until you can afford a house and a car and a nice set of clothes and all this stuff. And just like Cinderella, you just become not poor anymore. It's fucking childish. You've clearly either not thought about what you're saying very hard, or you are just genuinely lacking in any shred of empathy or compassion for your fellow human beings, or you are a fun and exciting troll, because we've had some bullshit troll calls recently, Salami. This one was at least interesting if you're trolling. So kudos to you for that. This was a funny one. We'll give you the last word, Salami. Does anything that we're saying stick with you in any way, or do you just think that at the end of the day, there's always time for prostitution?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, you took the words right out of my mouth. There's always time for prostitution, and also all you have to do is get on your knees and pray for 3 days.
I can't.
Oh my
When I give you a straw man, when I give you a straw man and you repeat it, like that's the end of the conversation for me. It's been funny. It's been very funny, Salami. Thanks for putting a smile on our face. Fucking gross if you're even close to serious. Shame on you. If you're even close to serious, you should be seriously ashamed of yourself. But if this is supposed to be funny, it at least got some laughs. So have fun with whatever dumb shit you say next. Goodbye, Salami.
I mean, I've never heard anybody be like, "Oh, hey, look, I need some money for coffee," or some kind of shit like that. And they're like, "But have you tried sucking dick yet?" Like, I mean, suck a dick in a back alley. But I'm not giving you the $3 you need for coffee. Suck some dick.
I need Salami to publish her get rich quick scheme like health book. You know what I mean? Like this is the new Tony Danza getting up on stage. Listen, y'all, every public library has a bathroom and every strip club has a locker room. There are options for you.
Chapter 3, spread them cheeks.
Spread them cheeks. Fucking shit, dude. Oh,
damn.
Man.
Okay.
Okay, so it's some people are saying that she said something about 3 days at the end. Yeah, I gotta tell you, there's apparently like a group of people who have dedicated their lives to trolling our channels, this and AXP and all these other ones. And they all fall back on this 3 days of praying thing. And we've mentioned earlier that it's hard to tell whether these troll calls are serious because people believe this crazy shit. What I find is funny is even that the praying for 3 days thing, that was also a serious caller. The reason why that's a meme on this channel is because somebody actually seriously defended, like went to the mat. Like, you've got to fucking pray for 3 days and then you'll know Jesus. And so, like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, there's no way to know anybody is true or not because it's all so these actual beliefs are actually out there. We've got, let's talk to Jack, pronouns he, him, calling in from Tiny Nipples, who says, I will present personal evidence of God's existence. That's exactly what we want. If that's true, that's what we want it to be. So, Jack, you're on the line with Forrest and John. How are you doing today?
Hey, Forrest. Hi, John. Nice to talk to you.
What up,
Pleasure
Jack?
to have you on.
Yeah, thanks. I've never, well, a confession time. I've never listened to your show except for 2 days ago.
That's
I
probably
listened about
good.
an hour to one of your shows. But boy, that last fellow, that's a hard one to follow anyway. But the reason I called was because my niece's husband doesn't believe the Bible, and he's always, we're always going back and forth. And he said, if you call this show that I listen to all the time, him and my niece both listen to you guys all the time.
Okay.
And call in, then I'll listen to something that you pick out for me. So I made him this deal.
Okay.
So that's basically why.
So just that's fine. I love that. Just so we're clear, you do understand that the shows, like both John and I here as the host, we are both atheists. We don't believe in the Bible either. We are paid on this network to host these shows, and things get combative because we are pushing the idea. We are arguing for the position that there's no good evidence for a God, no good reason to believe in a God. The Bible is not true and also pretty fucking gross. Like, just so you understand, this is going to be, it can be a polite discussion, but the point is for us to be having a somewhat combative exchange here. Are you understanding where that, like you said, you listen to the show a little bit. I just want to make sure you know what you're getting into.
Yeah, I understand. Well, yeah, he told me that you guys are decent guys, so I'm kind of throwing myself out there. I figured you.
Right. I wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page because, like, sometimes somebody will like take somebody who is a well-meaning person who is a believer and be like, get on the show with the intention of embarrassing them by having them, because John and I do this for a living. So like we've probably heard a lot of the stuff you're saying before. If we haven't, we're gonna be, doing combat with your ideas. And so I didn't want you to be caught off guard or feel like you were put up or embarrassed or anything like that. So as long as you know what this show is and know enough to like engage with what we're talking about here, I have no problem talking to you.
Well, I really appreciate you putting that out there for me. So
no worries.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, so what's your personal evidence for God? Well, first of all, which God do you believe in? And then also, why do you believe in it?
Okay, well, I'm Christian. I'm a follower of Jesus.
Okay.
I'm a recovering alcoholic, 25 years sober, and I became a follower of Jesus.
Congratulations.
Right after I got sober. So, thank you.
Well, congratulations on your sobriety. That's incredible. That's very, very cool.
Thank you.
I do want to ask, you mentioned the Bible earlier. Do you believe that the Bible in its entirety, or even just like either some of it, all of it, like what do you believe that the Bible is an accurate depiction and description of God?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. Because before I became a follower of Jesus, I had 3 DUIs, and I was looking to go to prison. And I was walking through my mother's kitchen, and they had a Bible study going on, and I never believed the Bible was true. I always thought it was a bunch of stories made up so people would be good, So I'm walking through, and I heard them reading scripture, and I don't know, something just came over me, and I'm like, I listened, and then I asked, can I sit here and listen to you guys for a bit? So I sat there and listened to them. They gave me a Bible, and I'm like, wow, maybe I'll give this, Bible thing a chance. I didn't believe it at the time. I thought, it could be true, but you guys could argue that, I was in a horrible place because I was living in my car at the time. I was just at my mom's house, just leaving some stuff there because I knew I was going to prison. And so you could argue that I was at a very low place and I was just looking for something, anything, and I happened to hear the Bible. So you can say that, but I started studying the Bible. I started going to church on Sundays, listening to preaching, and after about 2 months, I decided that I am going to choose to believe that the Bible is true. So that's what I did. I chose to believe that the Bible was true, every single word.
Ooh, okay.
A lot of problems there. A lot of problems.
I know.
John, do you want to start?
Ammunition, I know.
No, that's okay. I appreciate your honesty and your candor, because like that there's a lot of stuff there that I would want to pick apart. I've already gotten some detailed notes here. John, do you want to start or do you want me to start?
Yeah, sure, I can start. The thing that prevents me, which I feel like you just say, I believe the Bible. For whatever reason, you believe the Bible. That's fine. Here's why I have trouble believing the Bible in this particular respect. The reason why I have problems believing in the Bible is because it's a horrible book. It promotes misogyny. I don't know if you know this, but the way that people were married, like in the Old Testament and even on into the New Testament, the way people were married were the men would rape the women. I mean, that's what it amounted to. They would rape them. We can in the Old Testament, you can even go to it's somewhere in Genesis, I believe. Basically, the entirety of the chosen people of the Bible, the Israelites, they were built off of the sexual enslavement of women. Not only did Jacob end up buying his 2 wives, one accidentally, the other one purposefully, but when they weren't producing heirs at the time, they gave over their servant girls to be basically incubators, for Jacob to copy paste himself into. And so the sexual enslavement of women is what the Israelite culture is completely based on. There's that. There's chattel slavery, which we could get into. Leviticus 25, 44 through 46. Numbers 31 has, the Israelites being ordered by God to kill babies. I'm assuming that you would not, if I were to give you there, Jack, if I were to give you a sword and tell you to go and kill a baby, just rip the baby out of its out of their mother's arms and shove that sword into their chest, killing them, I'm assuming that you would tell me to fuck off and that you would not do that. But that's exactly what Numbers 31 has. 1 Samuel 15, the very first few verses of that, has God specifically saying to murder children. So when you tell me that you believe in the Bible as being some kind of historical document or some kind of representation of God, it just falls flat for me. Because, like, if you believe that that God is real, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know how to interact with you because it seems like a horrible fucking God to believe in. I don't know. Forrest, what do you got to say?
I would just expound on that and just say that the Bible is not only horribly inconsistent, it has a lot of contradictions and a lot of reasons to believe that it isn't true. But even if it was true, it's not a good book. It is full of slavery, murder, rape, misogyny, genocide, human sacrifice. Like it's a horrific story. And the reason why I asked you, Jack, do you believe that it's a good depiction of God, is because the God presented in the Bible is a monster, front to back. And so, like, that's, to me, just to parrot what John was saying, I don't understand why you would find comfort in this book other than to say that it is a cultural norm for you. There's no way that you could read this thing and say, okay, this is where I need to draw my morality from. But it would make sense to say, this is what the people around me have historically considered to be good guiding principles, even though they're really not. And therefore, I'm going to live my life in what I think is a more dignified way.
Well, you're absolutely right about that. Listening to preachers and stuff like that. If I wrote the Bible, of course, I wouldn't put all that stuff in there, because I'd be wanting people to read it, to do better. But I know that there's a lot of stuff in the Bible that is really bad, especially the Old Testament. I know Jesus came to kind of bring women out of that, out of the way they were in the Old Testament. He kind of brought women back to where they should be.
Not really.
You don't agree?
So like the thing is that Jesus said that I come not to change the law, but to fulfill it. Jesus said, not a jot nor tittle of the old ways shall change until all things come to pass. Jesus said, any man who does not follow me, bring him before me and kill him before me. Like that's, Jesus was very much the same kind of guy as the God of the Old Testament as well, and believed the same things and went on to enforce the same kind of rules. And it's important to mention that only with Jesus do we also then get teachings of things like hell. So like gentle Jesus, meek and mild, the new law of love, and also eternal torture in fire. So like, it's not really fixing anything. And also Jesus, the Bible is front to back as a pro-slave book. The God of the Old Testament repeatedly tells you how to keep slaves, where to buy slaves, that slaves are your property forever and then passed on to your children as property. Jesus at no point says that you shouldn't keep slaves. Jesus at no point. In fact, Jesus makes some parables about slaves. I believe it's Paul who says that slaves should obey their masters, especially their Christian masters, because they can partake of their share of heaven. So like, again, if you're looking at this book as a source of moral truth or guidance, you're going to be in for a bad time. I think what more likely happened is that you are relying on the cultural tradition of associating the Bible with morality and with being a good, upstanding citizen. And you're saying, I want to live my life better. I don't want to be an alcoholic anymore. So I'm going to call myself a Christian. I'm going to say the Bible is true, despite the fact that you would not advocate for or adhere to most of it.
Well, that's fair to say that. The main thing in being a follower of Jesus is to follow Jesus. So all the other stuff in the Old Testament, I don't really consider that, the moral part of the Bible. But
sorry, Jack, can I ask you a quick question? Right. Sure. Here's how I think about that. And I get that a lot. Like I understand a lot of not creationists, but Christians, want to follow that line. But here's my thinking on it and why I'm confused. And I don't know if anybody can correct me on this, but let me just ask you a quick question. Do you believe that Jesus is God?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you believe that God is the same in the past as he is in the present and as he will be in the future?
Yeah, that's what the Bible says.
Okay. For me, in my very analytically processing brain, hyper fixating on the analytical part here, when I hear that, how does that absolve Jesus from the actions of God in the Old Testament? The actions of God in the Old Testament have him, commanding the taking of slaves, the commanding of treating women as property, the commanding, like the 10 Commandments. I'm guessing that you think the 10 Commandments like apply to Christians, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you know that in the 10 Commandments, it lists women as property as well as slaves? Do you think that women are property?
No.
No? Should they be treated as property?
No.
Okay. Are women just supposed to be meant as incubation machines that reproduce for the human race? Do you see women that way?
No.
No. So why on earth would you try to absolve the Christian faith by saying, oh, well, I'm just supposed to follow Jesus, and Jesus said these 1 and 2 things that I can cherry pick out of the New Testament, when you're not actually following the logic, like the logical conclusion of the Christian theology as laid out by the New Testament? If Jesus is God, then Jesus is also the one that commanded the taking of slaves and the treating of women in such a way to effectively be, sexual slaves. So I guess I don't understand. Maybe you could help me understand how you can separate Jesus from God in that particular respect, but also keep this connection that Jesus is God. Like, can you explain that for me?
Well, that's a tough question. I just believe that Jesus came and in the New Testament, Jesus talks about the commandments, but the commandments were really to show us how much we need Jesus. They were to show us that we can't follow the 10 Commandments. So we need to turn our lives over to Jesus because he died for our sins, so that, because we can't do that on our own.
So here's the issue I have with what you're saying, Jack, is that like what you just said to us is what I like to call an everlasting thought stopper. It's one of these things that Christians say that is in place of it. You say that instead of actually rationalizing with the morality of the position. Jesus died for our sins, and we need him, and we need to turn to him, and all these things. That all sounds very nice until you ask why any of that is necessary. Why did Jesus have to die for our sins? Why couldn't God just forgive us with unconditional love? Why is sin a thing in the first place? Why is there these silly... What is Jesus saving us from? A lake of fire. Why did God make a lake of fire? Why would anyone who claims to love somebody threaten them with eternal torture and annihilation, all these stuff? Why wouldn't God, if God is truly loving, just forgive everyone everything? Or better yet, come down here and say, hey, kids, listen, I love you very much. Please stop raping each other. Please stop having slaves. There's 10 commandments. 4 of them are all about his ego. Don't make any graven images. Don't have any other gods before me. All these other things. No commandment about don't rape. No commandment about don't have slaves. He says don't murder, but then later on tells them to commit genocide and go kill the Amalekites, every man, woman, child, infants, even the cattle and donkeys and asses, kill their livestock, salt the earth so nothing ever grows. And that's the same guy who's saying you shouldn't kill each other. Like, you're presenting us with this, frankly, just sermon to say, well, we need Jesus because Jesus died for our sin. But you're not grappling with the fact that the moral situation that you're presenting us is horrific just on its own right. There's no reason for any of that stuff. If this God is truly moral and good, then we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in now. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And you mentioned a question about why doesn't God just come down here and forgive everybody? But God is a God of mercy, but He's also a just God, so He can't do that.
Oh, wait,
Why not?
hold on.
That's not what the Bible says. The Bible says He does that a lot. The God of the Bible interferes with free will. The God of the Bible appears before people to give them clear instructions, all sorts of stuff. And also, even if that wasn't the case, Jack, I mean, for goodness sake, dude, how could you care about the judgment of this God when this God's sins far outweigh yours? The sins of the God of the Bible are more impressive than any that you could ever possibly, hope to do on your own. And now you're worried about this thing's rules and judgment? Why?
I don't know. Well, you got me there, right?
I don't give a shit what kind of person Hitler thinks I am, So why would I care about this God?
Well, I just I wanted to share some of the things that have you ever heard of Celebrate Recovery?
Celibate recovery, you said?
Celebrate Recovery. It's a Christian recovery program for alcoholics.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I have not. I thought you said celibate recovery, and I'm like, that could only make it worse.
There probably is a celebrate recovery. I don't know.
Oh,
man.
No,
it's a Christian recovery program for alcoholics and drug addicts, and they base it on the Word of God. So, I've been a leader in Celebrate Recovery for years, and I've seen people who come to Christ and their lives are changed dramatically. One instance just comes to my mind is a guy who saw his parents murdered in front of him. He ended up becoming a drug addict and an alcoholic. He tried to quit for like 20 years. He became a follower of Jesus. Jesus, and now he's a leader in his church.
Right, but here's the thing, man.
That's a
fan. Right, that's the thing. Like, there's the pedophiles are leaders in the churches as well. The issue is that utility isn't the same thing as truth, Jack. That was the big thing. I don't know if you're into philosophy at all. I'm not, but I read some Plato as a kid, and I remember he talked about Socrates wanted to preach the noble lie, to tell people lies about the nature of their existence in order to force them through indoctrination to behave and create a more productive society that would move forward. And he said this was a noble thing to do, to lie to people in this way, because the end result was that humanity moved forward at a greater clip. And that's what I hear is the same thing you're advocating here for, is that it doesn't matter if it's true. It doesn't matter if it's even good. I think you and I could probably agree, Jack, that most, if not all of the teachings of the Bible are either evil or they're good as long as you don't keep them in the context of the Bible. There's plenty of things in the Bible that you can take out of the Bible and make good. But in the context of the Bible, there's very little that I would actually call good, right? And so you have this evil book, this book that condones slavery, this book that condones rape, this book that condones genocide, this book that condones misogyny, this book that is wholly scientifically inaccurate, wholly philosophically lacking, this book that is just a dearth of just absolute misery, just this little bastion of filth of the earliest, stupidest attempts at naturalism from the fucking 2,000 years ago. And culturally, it's been associated with good. And you see that some people who are indoctrinated with this ideology behave well. And so you're promoting it. And here's what I want to really get across is that I am so fucking proud of you for your recovery. That's incredible. I am so fucking proud of everybody that you're working with at getting sober and staying sober and getting your life together. That is huge. That is worthy of so much praise and so much celebration, for sure. The issue that I have with it is that you are allowing this crutch. You're saying that I'm going to use this crutch, this Christianity to get me there. And then you are allowing the crutch to become the disability. to now say, now because I relied on this indoctrination to get myself over the mental hump of sobriety. Now I am bought in to this wholly immoral philosophy, and I'm going to go on believing that I'm a sinner, and I'm going to go on believing that I'm deserving of hellfire, and I'm going to go on believing that regardless of whatever I think, I believe the Bible's true, therefore women are second-class citizens, and I guess I can own slaves, but I guess I'm not gonna. Like, do you see how this is just a major amount of baggage that you're attaching to yourself, when I think that people are strong enough to seek recovery and to get sober on their own? Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I was trying to get to was, people have tried for years and years to get sober, people that come to us and they can't. And when they come to us and they go through these principles, these biblically based principles, they recover. So it's like,
right. Because they believe they do that because they believe that the creator of the entire universe is telling them what to do. It carries a lot more weight in their mind, especially considering the fact that addiction, people who struggle with addiction have these immense feelings of shame and feel very ostracized from their friends and family and communities. A doctrine that tells you the smartest creature in the world, the most authoritative figure in the entire universe, loves you very much and is telling you exactly what to do, and then your disease will go away if you do these things. That is a very attractive doctrine. And because it is so attractive, it is also so sinister. And so, I don't want you to think for one second that I'm saying that these people should just be left in the cold. I'm saying that they are being abused by a notion that is using indoctrination, fear, shame, guilt, all these same things to trick them into behaving in a healthy way, and then leaving them healthier physically, but not much healthier mentally.
Well, I don't know, because a lot of them had a broken relationship, the relationships that were mended,
Jack, I'm sorry. Your phone's cracking a lot. I can't hear what you're saying. Could you please try to say that again?
Can you hear me now? Am I better?
It's coming through real staticky.
Yeah, you guys are getting staticky too.
There we go. Way better. Whatever you changed, stay with that. It works.
Okay, I stood up, so I'll keep standing up.
Sure.
I was just going to say, well, it changed a lot of aspects of their life. Their relationships got better. They became more productive in society. It wasn't just they got healthier. There was other things in their life that changed too.
Can I ask something real quick, Jack?
Sure.
Do you think that that people cannot get sober, or that they cannot turn their life around without Jesus? Or is Jesus just sort of one particular avenue that seems to work for some people out there? Like, what do you think? Do you think that Jesus is absolutely necessary? Like, unless I have Jesus, can I not turn my life around?
Well, that's a good question. And when I first got sober, I got ordered by the court to go to AA. So I went to AA for a year and a half, and I got sober there. So yes, and a lot of my friends,
and AA is very religious in nature.
Well, yeah, they have a higher power, which it could be anything you want. Celebrate Recovery focuses on Jesus. So that's after I got sober, then I became a follower of Jesus. So then I looked for a Christian program. That's how I got involved with Celebrate Recovery.
Okay, and I'm really not trying to diminish your efforts in getting sober, but I guess from my position, and I'm not going to speak for Forrest over there, but I feel like regardless of what happened, you were the one that got sober. It wasn't some kind of magical thing that happened where Jesus was the magical key to it. You know, I think that you are the one that did the work to get sober, and that you should be proud of yourself for getting sober. So, I mean, I don't know, man. Like, I feel like what you're saying is that Jesus is necessary for these things, but like, if Jesus is not necessary for these things, then it kind of seems like Jesus is not this magical ingredient for all of this. It's really more about the person, whether the person wants to change their life, whether the person wants to become sober. Like, I feel like there are so many people out there that could join these particular programs, and because they don't actually want to get sober, then they don't follow through. And it's like Jesus isn't the magical sauce for these people. So it's like Jesus seems to be a non-factor in these particular situations. So like, I don't know, I feel like you should celebrate yourself more and Jesus less, because Jesus didn't do anything for you. In my opinion, Jesus didn't do anything for you. You did it for yourself, and you should feel empowered by that.
Well, I feel the exact opposite of that, but I mean, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but
right. But that's why. I'm sorry. If you have to go, it's okay. I'll say what I have to say about it on camera. But what you just said is exactly the point that we're trying to make, Jack.
Oh, okay. Well, I just want to say one more thing is like, you know, if I'm wrong, well, then I guess I just wasted my life serving a God, you know, that doesn't exist, you know. But if I didn't do that and I was right, then I would spend, you know, then I'd be risking my eternity. So I think I'd rather, you know.
So
that's called
Jack.
Yeah.
Sorry, you go ahead, Forrest.
Oh no, I think we're about to say something. That's called Pascal's wager, Jack, and it sucks because for all you know, you are wasting your life serving the wrong God or the wrong kind of the one God you have. There are over 40,000 denominations of Christianity alone, many of which think that the other 39,999 are all going to hell because they're doing things wrong. So like, it's just a bad logical exercise, and it's not a good reason to believe. More importantly, what you said a second ago that I think is so poignant is that you said you disagree with what John said, that the power is within you to change your behavior and to become sober on your own way. And that's the issue, is that these beliefs, like I said earlier, I'm so happy. I'm so incredibly happy that you have your sobriety. That is so incredibly important. However, the problem with these programs is that they rob you of the power within yourself. They rob you of your achievement. You fucking did that, dude. And there's actual scientific evidence here. There's these experiments. It's called Princess something. I don't remember what it was, but they would put kids in a room with an empty chair and a bowl of candy. And they'd say, we're going to walk out of the room for a minute. We'll be right back. And the kids would eat all the fucking candy. And then they come back and the candy would be gone. And then they had another group of kids and they would say, hey, magical princess whatever is sitting in that chair. She's invisible. You can't see her or touch her, but she's watching you. And I'll be right back. And the kids would never touch the candy because magical princess whatever was watching. And that's what religion is. It's a domestication tool for humans. You tell somebody that this magical creature in the sky is watching them, and it doesn't matter how evil this Bronze Age sex manual might be, it is the good book, and people will do whatever, whether it benefits them or not, based on this belief that this magical princess in the sky is watching over them. And it robs you of your own dignity and your own accomplishment. I'm so fucking proud of you, dude, that you got sober and pulled your life together. I wish that you believed in yourself the way that I believe in you, because that's what religion has done. It robs you of that self-dignity and that self-worth. That's the problem that John and I have with it, Jack.
Well, I appreciate you guys talking with me, and thank you for the, for the kudos. I still believe that it's Jesus working in me that did it, but
And I think that's a placebo effect. I think that is the definition of placebo, is what you just described. And if you don't know what a placebo is, I encourage you to look it up.
Oh, I know what a placebo is.
Okay, right. Well, call us back some other time, Jack. Yeah, you've been very pleasant. I enjoyed talking to you. Feel free to call anytime.
Oh, thank you. I enjoyed talking with you too, and I really appreciate it.
All right, take care, Jack. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
What a nice guy.
Yeah.
Shit.
It was a good. That was a good call.
Yeah, it was a very, very good call. Maybe next time we'll talk about pronouns or some shit. Who knows? But like for what it was great.
Yeah.
We've got plenty of other people calling in. Lines are damn near full. We've got one line still open for theists alone, please. If any theists want to call in and talk to us, I would love to talk to you. But for right now, let's talk to... How do you feel about Steve calling in from... Oopsie... Oops, all Klingons.
Oops, all Klingons.
So stupid. Who's a theist who wants to know where we get our interpretation of the Bible from? Steve, you're on the line with Forrest and John. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing pretty good. How about you guys?
I'm doing really well, man. So you want to know about our interpretation of the Bible? Is there anything particular you're asking about, or is that just the general? That's the whole question.
Yeah, kind of. I'm just wondering in general, where do you feel as though you have the authority to interpret these texts in the correct way?
I'm sorry, Steve. Can you read words on a page?
Yeah, I can.
So you can? Okay, good, because I can read words on page too. Therefore, I read words good, and that's how I get like the concepts from the Bible that I get.
Well, technically, okay. Well, let me just stop you there real quick.
It is weird to ask where we get the authority to interpret these things when, like, even Bible scholars, theologians, people who actually study the Bible for a living, are drawing many of the same conclusions that we draw, if not all of them. And also, there are many of them that are secular or at least not Christian. And so, like, we, as John is saying, we just read the page, and a plain text reading of what the text says is what we're going with. And that is good enough, considering the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, there's over 40,000 denominations of Christianity. I guarantee, even if you disagree with my interpretation, there are Christians who agree with it, because that's the way this shit works. But also, the people who actually study this for a living is often where we're getting our information from. I listen to a lot of theologians who tell me a lot about where these things come from and what these words mean, so that I can make a better argument in shows like this. John, you look like you're about to say something.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was just going to say, we can go to any level that you want to there, Steve. We can go to the Greek interlinear, and we can read it in the original Greek, and we can understand it in the original Greek, in the original context in which they meant it in. We can go to biblical scholars now that are going to reaffirm how we are actually reading these things. I could rattle off a number of scholars that I get my interpretation and my understanding of not only the biblical text, but also the culture in which the Jews were raised in, as well as the Jewish Christians, and then finally the Christians existed within. So, like, whatever level in particular that you want to read the words off of the page, we can literally read the words off of the page. Just like, I don't know, maybe you can give us one particular verse or one particular concept that you seem to disagree with us about, or you think that we are wrong about in our interpretation of it. Maybe a more directed sort of path it could be beneficial. I don't know. I'll let you choose.
Yeah, could you point me out to the biblical scholar or anyone who studies the Bible in general, Greek Septuagint, or any of the texts that we have that says that Jesus commanded people to kill unbelievers at his feet? Could you point that one out? Because I don't believe that there's one biblical scholar worth their salt that would actually say that that's what Jesus commanded. That's a parable. It's a literary device. Right. I mean, so you could say that it says what it says. You could say that, we could just read it with our eyes. But I could say the same thing about a scientific text. And I could be like, well, in this scientific literature, it says X, Y, and Z. But I'm not an expert in scientific literature.
Steve.
Okay. Go ahead. I'll let you guys talk for 5 minutes, but okay, you go ahead.
Right. But I was trying to kind of, you asked a question and then you had like, a minute or two of like exposition on your question. So I guess, just playing off of the last call there, do you believe that Jesus is God? I'm just asking you in your own personal like take on the
Well, you
Bible.
can answer my question first, because I asked the question first.
I'm trying to.
What biblical
this is the
scholar says
problem
that
with
Jesus
Christian
killed people and believers?
denominations, Steve, this is the problem with Christian denominations. You and interpretation. You may
I'm
not
not part
interpret
of a
Jesus to
denomination.
be God.
I'm part of a branch.
You're part of a branch, like a Dunder Mifflin branch, or like what kind of fucking branch are you talking about?
Well, this is where church history becomes very pertinent, because if you would know anything about church history, you know there's three different branches. There's Orthodox, Catholic, and Protestant. I'm part of the Orthodox branch.
Yes,
So,
I do know about Orthodoxy,
church history and
Protestant, and
interpretation.
Catholic.
Yeah, so those aren't denominations; those
Yeah.
are branches. Just kind of clear that up.
No. I understand that, but there are denominations within each of those that they interpret the biblical stuff. So I'm really just trying to figure out
There
how
are
you're
subsections,
interpreting
but
the
they're not
Bible
branches.
so that I can work within your particular interpretation. So I'm asking questions so that I'm not just telling you shit that you don't believe already. Right? This is called having a productive conversation, Steve.
I know. I'm trying to have one. I asked a question about Jesus, killing unbelievers, and no one answered that. So, I think a productive conversation involves asking and answering questions.
Right, Steve, and Forrest is looking up verses to bring up. I'm asking you a clarifying question so that I know how to answer you. And the clarifying question is: do you consider Jesus to be God? Because that's important.
Yes, the Nicene Creed that was established in the 2nd and 3rd century, clarify that Jesus is God.
Okay,
yes.
Good.
So I go with the historical ecumenical councils and things of that nature.
Okay, and you understand why I have to ask that, right? Because there are Christians out there that don't consider Jesus to be God, but sort of like on the same level
Christians
as God.
That came thousands of years after the Christianity, I believe. Yes.
Okay. Anyways, I just wanted to clarify that just so that I could actually speak to you in the way that I understand Christian theology. Christian theology states that, Jesus is God. If God is the same as in the past, as he is in the present, as he will be in the future, then God definitely has called for both Christians and Jews alike to unalive people or kill people right in front of them. So, yes, Jesus, being that Jesus is God, has called for that in the Old Testament, Numbers 31, 1 Samuel 15, and there's plenty of other passages that I could bring up. But so if Jesus is God, God has definitely called for that directly of his chosen people.
Okay, so Numbers 31 asserts that they should kill the unbelievers just because they should do it, is what you're saying.
I'm saying that Numbers 31 says that God commands the genocide of an entire group of people to include innocent women and children and men. And you were specifically asking where in the Bible does Jesus say kill unbelievers? And considering that Jesus is God,
I was asking about historical scholar. I was asking if any historical scholar would assert that belief that Jesus asked for unbelievers to be killed at his feet. That's what I was asking for. To clarify.
Yeah, I've been looking.
Go ahead.
I have been looking. I have not found anyone who is talking about that verse in particular. I have found plenty of people, scholars that I listen to. I've listened to a lot of people who have. I'll get there in a second. I have found several of my scholar friends who do share with my assertion that the Bible commands for the death of non-believers in general, or that the Bible is a pro-slavery book. Like that, those are pretty common understanding. This one verse in particular, I cannot find. Who knows? Maybe that's the more popular interpretation. All I'm saying is what I said a minute ago when we first brought this up, is that I guarantee that if I can take this interpretation of it by a plain text reading of this, there are other Christians who probably would do the same, but that is still a probably, and it is just about one single verse. We can pick other parts of the Bible, which are very clearly talking about spreading. Jesus also says, I come not to bring peace, but a sword. And anyone who doesn't hate their own brother, who does not follow me, and or their family doesn't follow me, and all these other things, which I know for sure have been taken as ways to say that we need to be more violent in the way that we spread this stuff and to spread the faith by sword by any means necessary. So like this one individual single passage that you've picked up here from Luke, like, yeah, I can't find anybody who talks about it. I can very easily find Bible scholars that talk about, you know, the Bible being very obviously pro-slavery front to back. And that's a reason why, you know, it sucks. And these are people who actually study the Bible for a living. Is it just this one interpretation of this one line that you're hung up on, or is it our interpretation in general that you're hung up on?
No, there's multiple. It all comes down to having an authoritative way to read the text, because Jesus also says to cut off your hand if it causes you to sin and pluck out your eye if it causes you to sin. Yeah, we don't see Christians lining up to get their hands cut off and eyes plucked out. So the thing is that it all comes down to...
Oh, hold on, Steve. Are you telling me that Christians historically have never employed that particular logic whatsoever for those particular perceived crimes?
There's been millions of Christians that have existed, so I can't say for sure if one or a group haven't ever done that before. But I'm saying that in general, most Christians know under the historical text that that's not how you interpret that text.
Steve, how do you explain the Crusades? How do you
explain
the Crusades?
From this verse to the Crusades? Like, we're going all over the place.
Well,
like, if we stay on like one thing, like we're talking about biblical interpretation, not holy wars.
Steve. We're going all over the place because Christianity is all over the place. Okay, so if you're going to say that Jesus only ever meant this happy-go-lucky fucking frolicking in the fields kind of bullshit, then you're going to have to explain thousands, and I want to overemphasize this, thousands of years of Christians conquering other civilizations, Christians conquering other denominations of Christianity and putting them to the sword because they felt like their God was calling them to do that. How do you explain that? Are you trying to tell me that your particular denomination of Christianity right now has the perfect interpretation of what Jesus actually meant? Everybody before you has just gotten it wrong, and you just so happen to have the correct interpretation.
Well, it's not me. It's the historical Christianity, like Catholics and Orthodox. That's what I'm saying.
See, yeah.
But
okay. So, but that's the thing, man. Is what John just said is that Catholics and Orthodox among them, lots of Christians, including Catholics or whatever branch you're in or whatever, Christians have used the Bible, their interpretations, to justify some truly horrific shit. Christians were the ones that were defending the institution of slavery here in the United States because the Bible is a pro-slave book. Christians are the ones who did the Crusades.
And the abolitionists were also Christians too.
Exactly. That is exactly the point, Steve, is that two different groups of people can read the same book and come to two very different interpretations. So for you to sit here and say that we don't have the authority to interpret this thing, well, guess what? Apparently, neither did most Christians who have ever lived. And it's completely unreasonable for you to sit here and say that your interpretation, your way of reading it, your way of understanding it is more correct than all of the millions and billions of Christians for thousands of years before you.
Yeah, because what you're bringing up is mostly Protestantism, and Protestantism goes off of sola scriptura. It takes away the traditions and the holy text.
The Crusades were done by the Catholics. The Catholic Church. The Pope
what about the Crusades?
Mandated the Crusades.
Why do we keep going back to the Crusades?
Do you think the Crusades were bad, Steve? Do you think the Crusades were bad?
Just the Crusades.
Why would I think they were bad?
There we go.
There we go. Who called the Crusades? Who called the Crusades? Who was the one who called the Crusades?
Hold on just a second.
Catholics.
I'm just going to pull up one particular. The massacre at Iadea. The massacre at Iadea was in the Third Crusade after when King Richard I had more than 2,000 Muslim prisoners of war from the captured city beheaded. He had 2,000 prisoners of war, and he beheaded them all because he believed God commanded him to do it. Was that a good moral thing, Steve?
Okay, or we could talk about individual actions
Yes
within
or
the
no,
Crusades, and we
Steve?
could go and parse
Yes
them
or
out
no,
if they're bad
Steve?
or not.
Yes or no, Steve?
I would say that that's not good. No. I'll answer your
Okay,
question
great.
if you want to answer mine, but I'll say that that's no.
So I
And
have
going
answered all of your questions.
The Crusades altogether, were a good thing. Yes.
The
I'm not saying
Crusades
every single
where
individual
people
act within the Crusades were good.
where people were promised absolution if they slaughtered as many infidels as possible. That was a good thing, in your opinion.
I'm not. Was that what Pope Urban II said whenever he issued the decree for the Crusades?
Oh my fucking God! You're gonna make me look up every little thing that you.
I'm pretty sure he didn't say that.
Google.
I know, because you try to be as uncharitable as possible with biblical people. Be uncharitable as possible. It's literally comical at this point. Like, you literally try to make them out as blood-raving savages. It's like not true.
Steve, the Catholics waged war against the Protestants.
I came on here to talk about interpretation. This is
no, fuck you. I came on here to.
It's so boring. So this is Pope Urban II, who urged Christians to recapture the Holy Land, especially the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, from Muslim rule. They were given the promise of eternal life, like the promise of eternal life given to Muslim martyrs. Christians were promised absolution from sin and eternal glory. So yeah, this is Pope Urban II promised absolution and eternal life if they went there and sacked these cities and recaptured them through violence. It's not like the Muslims were just like, oh, fuck, I guess we'll just give them to you. Yes, they had to go there and kill Muslims to take back their holy lands with the promise of eternal life. Does that sound like a good thing, Steve?
Oh, he's not on anymore.
And then Steve hung up. And then Steve hung up. Turns out, when you just Google the shit, you can find a lot of information about why this stuff is pretty fucking bad. And people who believed the Bible did bad things. I love how also he was saying, like, well, yeah, but some abolitionists were Christians too. That's the whole goddamn point, dude. Is that, yes, you can read the same book and either be Martin Luther King, or you can read the same book and join the Lord's Resistance Army. You can do one of two things based on the same damn book.
So it kind of seems to me, there, Forrest, like you're saying that it's not dependent upon the religion that they're practicing, but upon the personal opinions of the people that are implementing said religion, whether they want to read it in a very abolitionist way or in a very I'm gonna enslave your ass kind of way.
It's just fucking like, oh my glob. It's so fucking brainless to sit here and say, no, you don't understand. Steve's God is a good God. Steve's religion is the correct religion. And all these idiots, these billions of idiots for the past 2,000 years, they should have fucking checked with Steve. Like, come on. Just boring. Like, really, just boring thinking. We've got 3 theists and 1 atheist left on the line. And that'll be the end of our show after we're done with those guys. John, do you have a preference, a particular preference that you would like to go with? Because I'm good with any of them.
No, I'm good with any of them, honestly.
Sweet chicken. Let's talk to Billy.
Sweet.
Pronouns he, him. Calling in. What?
Sweet chickens.
Yeah. Billy says he has some alternatives to evolution. Let's talk about it. Billy, you're on the line with Forrest and John. How are you doing today?
Not bad. Yourself?
I'm awesome, man.
Are you there?
So,
okay, cool.
Yes, I'm here. So you say you have alternatives to evolution. Are you calling as a creationist? Do you say that evolution isn't real? Like, give me some context and background to what you're saying here.
No, I believe that evolution is real. I just think the mechanism used to describe evolution is not possible, and I have an alternative for it, which is not my.
When you say
mechanism, are you talking about?
Yeah, what mechanism? Because there's several mechanisms to evolution. So, what mechanism are you talking about that you don't think is serious?
Well,
or real?
The driving force of evolution is random mutation And I don't think that random mutation has, or matter of fact, I think that it's been demonstrated that random mutation does not have what it takes to sequence novel functional code sequences. So
okay, so let's start there before we get into your alternatives. I'm just gonna throw something out here, just really quick. I'm gonna write some words. Hold on, just 1 second. Can you see your screen? Can you see me on the screen?
Let me see real quick. I can, but you guys might be not the same. You know, you guys might not be at the same time.
There's going to be a delay. There's going to be a delay. That's fine. Just make sure there isn't sound on the screen. I just wrote something down, and I am now going to move my camera to make sure I can see it here. I'm going to hold something up, and you can tell me here. Okay. So here I've written on this page, I've written a sentence. Can you see it? Give it a few seconds.
Yeah, there's a delay.
That's fine. Just wait for the delay. Just wait for the delay there. But you can see, okay, I've written a series of characters that convey a message. What does it say?
Okay. It says, let's eat grandma. And I've seen this before. Let's eat grandma. Let's eat grandma. Let's
exactly.
Let's
So
grandma.
here's a series of characters. Let's eat grandma. And here's a random mutation, just deleting one character. Let's eat grandma. And so this is an example how one change, a novel mutation, for example, this is now a completely new message. This means something completely different than the original message, right? So when we talk about it's impossible for random mutations to create new information, no, it fundamentally is not. Not only can we create whole new genes, but even if that wasn't the case, we can create totally new functionalities using information that's already there.
Yeah, and I was just going to give you a quick example of this. So hold on there, Billy. So there is an experiment that exists out there where we have changed just a minor gene in alligators, right? Or maybe it's not alligators; it's some kind of reptile. But basically, the scales of the alligator, because of the gene that was changed, turned into these very primitive feathers. The primitive feathers being little needles that are poking out. And so the scales changed to these little needles. And so we have actual laboratory experiments where we've manipulated the genes and caused significant changes to an organism. So I don't understand where you're coming from on this.
That change was due to a destruction of information in that genome.
Can you describe? No, hold on. As far as the genome concerns, describe what destruction is, because I don't understand in the context of mutations and the genome and everything like that. I don't understand what destruction means as far as what you're saying. I don't know, but Forrest has probably more information on this than I do. But as far as mutation goes, I don't see destruction. I just see change. I don't know. Am I wrong there, Forrest?
No, I hear this a lot from creationists who will say that it's only destruction of information. There's no creation of new information. And that ignores the fact that absolutely mutations can create information as well. De novo gene birth is a thing. Duplication events are a thing. Creating new information is absolutely a thing. It's a cop-out. But, Billy, we've been talking for a long time, so I would love to hear what you have to say about all this.
Generally, genetic mutations cause dysfunction. It causes a prohibition of expressing in genes, and generally
That's
those code sequences are rendered, incapacitated. So, I mean,
that's not true.
And it's true. Well, yeah, no, that's definitely true.
Most mutations are silent. Most mutations have no observable effect.
Or deleterious. Matter of fact, there's far more deleterious mutations than there are beneficial mutations, and I would argue that there's never been a quote unquote beneficial
let's just
mutation
assume
which
that
causes
it's true,
not beneficial.
Billy.
Yes, there
Billy,
has.
No,
Yes,
no,
there
there
has.
Go ahead.
So, you said there's never been a beneficial mutation. We absolutely have observed beneficial mutations in several different instances, both in the laboratory and in the field.
Right, and I was going to add that the ones that are going to allow the organism to survive better in the environment that they're in are going to be the beneficial ones. So, like, even if deleterious mutations were more prevalent, the only success that we would see are with the good mutations. So it's kind of like we would see the good mutations and we would fail to see the bad mutations as far as like a persistent change throughout the organism. The deleterious ones are not going to allow the organism to survive for generations. Right. It's only the good ones that are going to allow it to survive.
I also want to point out, like, so two things that are important here. Number one, we need to talk about beneficial mutations because I heard you asking for some examples, and we will get there. But also, what I said earlier is that most mutations are silent, and you added on or deleterious. That's a problem of thinking. Most mutations are silent, period. More than 50% of mutations are not going to do anything at all, are going to have no immediate observable effect. So therefore, for you to add on or deleterious, that is correct. As would it be correct if I said most mutations are silent or beneficial? If most of them are silent already, then it doesn't matter what else you add in. So like that's a silly way of thinking right off the bat. I just want to point that out.
I believe that you're wrong.
Also,
I believe that you're wrong, dude. I believe that you're wrong.
Take it up with
there are more deleterious mutations than there are neutral mutations.
Really quick.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I feel like you're not even listening to us.
I just Googled are most mutations silent, and I got this. Around 99.8% of genes that undergo mutations are deemed silent because the nucleotide change does not change the amino acid being translated. That's what we call a silent mutation or a synonymous mutation. So literally Googled it and came up with this massive number that was higher than even what I expected from my undergrad genetics training. But that's not the point. The point is that even if that wasn't the case, what John said still stands to reason. Even if the vast majority of mutations were deleterious, that wouldn't change anything. That would still cause evolution to happen if there is still a differential success of reproduction or survival based on those mutation rates. Most importantly, you asked me for some examples of beneficial mutations. I'll give you 3. Number 1 is lactose tolerance in humans. That is an observed mutation, a single nucleotide change, a point mutation that is beneficial because it changes.
No, it's not. That's not beneficial.
It's not beneficial for humans to be able to drink milk?
Dude, we make sugar in all kinds of different ways. We don't have to drink milk. And as a matter of fact, it's not.
Billy, you are missing a fundamental part. You are missing a fundamental piece of understanding here, which is that deleterious and beneficial, you don't even know. Okay, explain what I was about to say, because you said, no, I'm not missing it before I even finished my sentence. So how am I wrong about what I was about to say to you, Billy?
I just Googled, are more mutations deleterious? And it just said yes. Most mutations are harmful. The effect of mutation
did you read the AI? Did you read the AI overview or an actual source?
And it even says we often expect deleterious mutation negative.
Did you read the AI overview or a source?
I'm reading both.
Did you?
I'm reading both.
Okay, don't read the AI overview because it's bullshit and it's been proven to be wrong several times. Doesn't matter. Because as I said a second ago, whether you're right or my actual training in this field is right, evolution would still progress. This doesn't actually change anything. You're getting hung up on the wrong thing. Now, a minute ago, I said you had a fundamental misunderstanding about something, and before I finished the sentence, you interrupted me and said, no, I don't. So please explain to me how you understand the thing that you didn't get to hear me explain that you misunderstood.
I don't understand your question.
A minute ago, I'll just repeat it. A minute ago, I said you have a fundamental misunderstanding about this whole thing. And I was trying to explain to you something very important that you're not understanding, which is why you interrupted me about the milk thing. And you cut me off and said, no, I don't. So please explain how I'm wrong about the thing that you didn't even get to hear me say.
I mean, I wasn't talking about what you were about to say.
Oh, you were just saying whatever random bullshit? Cool. So then I will now continue what I was saying and see if you can actually get through it without rudely interrupting me again. You have a fundamental misunderstanding when we're talking about milk and having lactase persistence being a beneficial mutation, and you said we can make sugar in all sorts of ways, we don't need milk. You have a fundamental misunderstanding of what the words deleterious and beneficial mean, which is that you are considering these to be absolute terms rather than relative terms. If you gain fitness in one environment, you necessarily lose fitness in another environment. Any beneficial mutation is necessarily deleterious in another environment. So when we talk about milk and you say, well, we can make sugar all sorts of other ways, that doesn't matter because we're talking about pastoral societies of early humans who were pastoral and raised goats and sheep and cows and things and relied on milk and cheese as a source of nutrition over times of hardship when they wouldn't have otherwise had access to nutrition. Having lactase persistence was a major positive mutation for them. It was a beneficial mutation, a major fitness advantage for them. That's why it is so persistent across Eurasian populations, especially West Europe and a little bit into West Asia. So that is a very beneficial mutation that spread rapidly, changing the allele frequencies of those populations, which is the definition of evolution, by the way. Whether or not we can today synthesize sugar in other ways and get sugar in other ways is completely irrelevant to what that mutation is or whether or not it was beneficial at the time. Now, that was only the first beneficial mutation I was going to tell you about. I have some other ones ready to go because you asked me for examples. I have some in the lab and in the field. Which would you like to have first?
First, I'd like to discuss that one. Do you know why? That mutation causes us to tolerate lactose? Do you know why that happens?
Yes, because it causes us to continue to produce the enzyme lactase well after our second birthday. That's why it's also called lactase persistence.
Yeah, and there's a gene that cuts that off, that stops that, and that gene was mutated and no longer functions. So it's a dysfunction of the code that causes that to happen. So that mutation
doesn't matter.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. Matter. It is still a random mutation. There's nothing in the definition of the word mutation that says it has to create a brand new gene. Mutation is any change. Yes, but that's what you're implying. Any change to the genome sequence, any change to the DNA sequence is a mutation. And so this is a mutation that does silence a gene that still makes it a beneficial mutation.
With all due respect, you don't get to decide what I'm implying. I was not implying that. I was not implying that.
Then why'd you bring it up? That this is turning off a gene as if it dismisses the fact that it is a mutation and it is beneficial?
The beneficial part is questionable, but what I'm talking about is it created a dysfunction in the genome. It actually literally caused a dysfunction in the genome. Like it's the same thing with sickle cell anemia. That's actually that allows people to resist malaria, or I think it's malaria. I forget if it's malaria or not.
It is malaria it's only if they have. It is malaria, but only if they are heterozygous.
Right.
If they are homozygous recessive, then they have sickle cell, which is further evidence to what I was saying, that the terms beneficial and deleterious are contextual.
What if malaria didn't exist? Would that still be beneficial?
There would be no reason for that. So then, yes, that would be heterozygotes wouldn't notice it. Homozygote dominant wouldn't notice it. And only homozygous recessive would notice it, and then it would be exactly as deleterious as it is today. So it would be a nothing mutation or a deleterious one, as opposed to today where it's either nothing, deleterious, or beneficial contextually.
You're right. So if malaria didn't exist, then it wouldn't we wouldn't even notice it. It wouldn't be beneficial at all.
Yes, and
right?
if lactose didn't exist, then the gene mutation that causes lactase persistence wouldn't matter either. That's what I keep saying. These terms are contextual.
Yeah, but essentially, it's a dysfunction of the genome of that sequence of the genome that's causing that effect to take place, right?
No, in that particular case, it is rendering one gene as not shutting off lactase production anymore. But to call it a dysfunction is to prescribe an idea to it that it was once perfect and is now a problem. If you have a gene through totally natural processes, if you have a gene that is hurting you and then that gene is rendered dysfunctional, then that is a benefit.
Well, I mean, but it's still what I'm talking about in regards to benefit is the sequencing of novel functional code sequence. The creation of novel functional code sequences. That's
what I said a minute ago when you said that I don't have the right to decide what you're meaning and what you're implying. Thank you for now saying the thing that I was saying you were implying a minute ago.
That's not what
mutation doesn't necessarily need to be something creating novel functionality or anything like that. That's not what the word mutation means. Beneficial or deleterious doesn't hinge on that.
Dude, I know that. That's what I said, dude. You're saying the exact same thing I said. Mutations cannot create novel code sequences. That doesn't happen.
But they can.
That's
what we're fucking telling you. Jesus fucking Christ!
Also,
I'm so fucking tired of this.
We haven't even gotten to the other things. I was going to give you two other examples just of a beneficial mutation. Because you're talking about novel functionality. A deleterious mutation could also imply novel functionality that hinders reproduction or survival. Fuck, dude.
I said novel code sequences. Look, you're starting to get pissed off.
Huntington's disease. Huntington's disease would be a novel code sequence that is deleterious.
Look, I don't want you to be pissed off anymore. I'd like to have a chill conversation.
I'm not pissed off. I'm annoyed because you keep just saying random shit as if it matters and then ignoring when we demonstrate that what you're saying doesn't make any sense. Huntington's disease is caused by novel gene sequences that are deleterious. That is a mutation that is based on new genes being added, new nucleotide sequences being added, so new novel information being added, and it is deleterious.
How are those sequences added?
Huntington's disease is caused by a certain repetition in one particular gene. I don't remember which one it is off the top of my head, but there's one particular gene where you have this long repetition of the same gene sequence over or codon over and over and over. And if you have exactly X amount of them, the gene functions properly. But if you have any more of them, you have Huntington's disease and you have this serious neurodegenerative disorder. And so what happens is when this gene sequence is being copied, it sometimes gets copied too much. It has a duplication mutation. That is a type of mutation. And it has way too many of these sequences that is adding on novel gene sequence, and it is deleterious.
That's not novel. That's repeating the same sequence over and over again. That's not new information.
Oh my fuck, dude! It's new information because if I write the words, "Let's eat grandma" twice, that's twice as many sentences. That is new information.
No, it's not. It's the same information twice. It's not new shit.
That is
come on, man.
You have how many letters? How many letters are in your genome?
Like 3 billion?
No. How many characters? Pardon me. How many characters? It is 30 billion. Yes.
There's 4.
So your entire 3, I think it is 30. It might be 3. It's a bunch. It's billions. It may be. Maybe I'm missing a 0. Who cares? It doesn't matter. The billions of characters within your genome are made of those 4 letters, right? Many of them, in fact, every gene is going to have the same start and stop codons as well. Does that mean that it's all the same information because it's the same nucleotide sequences, it's the same characters, it's the same codons producing the same amino acids? Just because one thing is repeated doesn't mean it isn't new information. That's ridiculous to say. If that wasn't the case, then duplication mutations wouldn't be considered mutations.
I mean, I'm talking about
Billy. Right, Billy. I'm just going to read from the Talk Origins website. It's a fabulous resource if you want to go there, and they have like all of them.
I don't want to go.
Oh, you don't. So let me get this straight. You called into this show and you don't want to hear the information that we have to tell you that shows that you're
Christian
wrong.
thing?
Is that correct?
Is that some Christian thing or what? If it's a Christian thing, I don't want to hear it. If it's a science thing, then yeah, I do want to hear it.
Origins is a science website.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was confused. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Maybe you should let us fucking finish when we're talking. I mean, so I'm reading it from
don't reprimand me, dude. Don't reprimand me. Just get on with the conversation.
Okay, well, I'm muting you now, so enjoy being on mute here. So, there's a claim, CB 101. They're organized and everything. Most mutations are harmful, so the overall effect of mutations is harmful. Is the full claim. It's going to apply to directly the bullshit that you're spouting here. So, in the response section, it has most mutations are neutral. Nachman and Crowell estimate that around 3 deleterious mutations out of 175 per generation in humans, that's from 2000, of those, they have a significant effect. Of those that have a significant effect, most are harmful, but a fraction of which are beneficial and is higher than usually. An experiment with E. coli found that about 1 in 150 newly arising mutations and 1 in 10 functional mutations are beneficial. And then there are some actual laboratory results that you can look up. So there's mutations that have given bacteria the ability to degrade nylon. That was discovered in 95. Plant breeders have used mutation breeding to induce mutations and select for beneficial ones. That was in 77. Certain mutations in humans confer resistance to AIDS. That was in 96 and 2001, or heart disease. That was in 94 and 83. A mutation in humans makes bones strong. That was in 2002. Transposons are common, especially in plants, and help provide beneficial diversity. That was in 2000. So I could go through all these things and read directly off the website how fucking wrong you are about mutations. But please fucking continue to tell us. Oh, well, he dropped. I guess. I don't know.
I was about to read. I've got this paper right here called The Origins of New Genes and Pseudogenes, published back in 2008. And this is just a lit review, a thorough paper explaining where new genes come from. The new gene origination is a driving force of evolutionary innovation in all organisms. Research has a focus on identifying the mechanisms that generate new genes, and it goes on to describe some of them. I was going to talk about the lizards off of the coast of Croatia. There are 2 islands, one of which has some lizards on it that were insectivores, and some researchers took some of these lizards and moved them over to another island that didn't have a big insect population, and came back after 40 years, and that same population of lizards had developed a totally new cecum, like a totally new part of their gut, and a big wide jaw for chewing on plants. They were becoming herbivorous because they didn't have as many insects to eat, and they were eating leaves, and had a totally new gut morphology and a totally new skull morphology in order to chew and digest plant matter. I was going to talk about a few other things as well. The Linsky long-term evolution experiment with E. coli bacteria constantly evolving to digest new sources of nutrition, kind of like humans being able to digest milk. Like, there's 1,000,001 examples of mutations happening that are beneficial, that are deleterious, that are silent, that create new information, that destroy old information. Like, it's not fucking hard to find this information. But to sit here and say copying a gene isn't creating new information because it's just the same information twice is like so fucking lazy. it's oh my glob, dude. You're gonna have to grapple with real science if you want to have a conversation about real science. You can't just decide what does and doesn't count in your special little world as new information. It's just, oh my glob, it's such lazy thinking.
Mm-hmm.
With that, we've got three callers left on the line. Let's talk to, I don't want to say this wrong. Is it Raimu, pronouns he, him, calling in all the way from South Africa? You're on the line with Forrest and John. How are you doing?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Hello, how do I pronounce your name? I don't want to say it wrong.
Riamu.
Riamu. I don't know why I transposed 2 letters. Okay, cool. Riamu, thank you so much for calling in. It says here you have questions regarding existentialism. With no God in our perspective, what's the point of living without God? Is that a fair summary of it? Do you want to tell us a little bit more about what you have to ask?
Yes. So I will use the example of Jack, the caller that was 2 calls behind. You have seen that he is alcoholic and he was in recovery. I believe this recovery was helped with the organization that he was talking about, with the Christian, the Christian recovery. But as you can see, when people think about God, God is what really drives them to keep living, because in this world, it's like full of cruelty and just hate. So I feel like without a God, why do you personally believe that life is worth living? Because what is the point if there is nothing after our 100 years?
Yeah. So this is a super common question that we get all the time. And the point for me is to make the most out of these however many years I have. Average human lifespan where I come from is around 80 years if you're lucky. I'm 32, so I've already used up almost half of what I got. And I could die tomorrow. I've got to fly. I've got to get on a plane next week, and we're having some issues with planes in this country, and I'm scared shitless about that. So I might die sooner than I think. But I'm here right now, and I'm going to make the most of what I've got. I'm going to try to use the time that I have to be as good of a person as I possibly can, try to make everybody else's life better. Knowing that this is all I have, and knowing that I'm not going to get to exist forever in some theme park in the sky, it makes me appreciate life more. It makes me realize just how precious every single moment is. I squeeze my wife a little bit tighter. I enjoy food a little bit more. I sing a little bit louder. I dedicate my time to shows like this because I believe it's a good, morally good thing to do. That's the point of living to me. It isn't contingent on a God. In fact, I would go so far as to say that believing that there is this God that's dictating reality, that I've been born on purpose with some divine intention, that sounds miserable to me. That's what makes me wonder what the hell is the point of living if I'm just only here by the decree of some other guy. I was born by someone else's desire, and I'm given this cosmic purpose. That sounds like hell. That sounds like misery to me.
Well, I heard some of your ideas that you would like to hug your wife a little tighter, and that food might be better. I just want to know, what do you think about the people that you preach this atheism to, that only have that to look up to, and when they are struck with, like, for example, let's say that you have something wrong with your brain, some genetic mutations that make you have psychological illnesses, you lose your friends, or maybe you're just born in a poverty-stricken area, you have no opportunities, you're unhealthy, and you're around terrible things, and you see all this suffering, but then, you see all the suffering. I'm sorry. Could you just give your input on what I just said?
So it sounds like what you were getting to is that religion gives hope to the hopeless, and for that reason it is somehow good. And what do I say to the people who I am now preaching and proselytizing my atheism to, who I would be taking that hope away from them? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. So what I would say is that there are plenty of other ways to derive hope. There are plenty of other reasons to be hopeful. Hope is not contingent on faith. Like you can have plenty of hope. I have plenty of hope, despite my incredibly nihilistic and mechanistic view of the world. Like I have lots of reasons, and I pay attention to politics, and I pay attention to the state of the climate. Like I have a lot of reasons to be stressed out about this world. I have a lot of anxiety about the state of the world around me, and yet I have plenty of reason to be hopeful that is derived from completely secular ways. And what I think is that people who derive hope from these religions, good that they have hope, but there's a tremendous amount of baggage that goes along with it. We talked to that person, Jack, a couple of calls ago, who is deriving his hope for his sobriety from the Bible, which is a book that, as we said on that call, the Bible is pro-slavery, the Bible is pro-genocide, the Bible is pro-rape, the Bible is pro-misogyny, the Bible is anti-LGBT. Like, the Bible has a lot of problems and a lot of baggage goes along with it. And so this guy is having to sift through this shit to find a little bit of positive in it. And I think that's worthless. I think that it's much, much better to teach people from an early age to stand on their own 2 feet and to find their own hope. And when they fail, to find community in other people and in philosophy and in their own ideas and in their fellow human beings, rather than turning to some horrific immoral story from the Bronze Age and saying, this is where I must derive hope from. I just hope that I get to live in a theme park someday, and I have to believe in an immoral monster in the sky that made the world as fucked up as it is to allow me to be so hopeless. It breeds this kind of sycophantic, obsequious sadness. It's this hope of hopelessness, that you are impotent to change your situation and that there's this other creature that has all the power and you just have to trust in this thing, this monster, this disease that allows you to live in this horrible world so that if you're obedient enough, maybe you'll be happy someday after you're dead. That sounds horrible to me. I would say it's much better to find hope and find meaning in the life that you have, and to work your ass off every single day to try to make everybody else's life a little bit better and try to make the world a little bit of a brighter place. Because I don't think that we inherit this earth from our forefathers. I think that we borrow this earth from the future generations, and we need to make it better for them and try to make life better for them. That's the fundamental difference between my thinking and this religious thinking. And that's why I think that what we're doing here, one of the many reasons why I think what we're doing here is actually quite a good thing.
That was extremely well said. And I have been, you completely compelled me. And I was wondering if I could add just another slight issue, because I am a theist, but I am sort of like partially one, because, seeing your channel, React area, all this stuff that just proves people who believe in, I used to be a Islamic, a Sunni Islamic, and I just, I see that, there's so much overwhelming evidence that there is no, that this God idea, like the guy, that Muhammad split the moon in half, and that's how we see the moon. It just makes me so skeptical. But then I say this, and then I tell my mom, I'm talking to my mom, and I'm like, how can you believe, we recently had the death in the family, and it was to something regarding the heart, and I'm like, well, do you think your God did this to a 27-year-old lady? Why do you? And then she just said something about God did it for whatever reason, and I just see all this, and I'm just so skeptical. But basically, what I want to say, but I don't believe anymore that there is a God, but I still don't eat pork. I still don't. I guess actually that's basically the extent of what I don't do it anymore. I just don't eat pork. And there's this thing that's compelling me to follow this doctrine a little bit. You can't completely let go of it. Why do you think my brain does that? How do I stop this obsession with my roots and the religion I was growing up with? Why can't I completely sever myself from it more than I already have, I guess?
Because it's something that you were indoctrinated into that still gives you comfort, because it reminds you of your childhood, and you're able to contextualize it and tweak it and make it more comfortable for your life, but it's still just something that gives you pleasure and joy and comfort because you were trained to derive those things from an early age. It's very human and it's very normal. It's the same reason why the video games that I grew up with, which are objectively bad video games, because there are just plainly better games now, I still look to the old N64 ones whenever I want that childlike rush of comfort because it's something that established that feeling of comfort in me from that early time and got me through a lot of abuse and harm and neglect and hardship in my own life. And I'm just going to go ahead and... I was trying to mute it. No, there we go. I appreciate playing the Zelda music, but whatever. I was never a Zelda fan. But just these are things that mattered to you at a young age and that you were taught are meaningful and good. And now you are still deriving some comfort from those things. You're still deriving meaning from those things. You are still, even if you don't 100% believe it, even if you're not holding on to this religion, you're holding on to the cultural practices that make you comfortable. And that's a very human thing to do. You can still, do little like meditations and practice and things that give you comfort until you develop new ones. Or you could continue doing the old ones forever. That not every cultural practice from every religion is bad. The Jewish tradition of ceremonially washing your hands before a meal, good thing to do, whether you're Jewish or not, So like these are things you can still hold on to a little bit if you'd like. But you don't have to hold on to the awful parts, not just the absurdity of things like, these miracles of splitting the moon in two or flying to heaven on a winged horse or anything like that. The pedophilia, you don't have to hold on to that. The divine command theory, like you talked about when you're talking to your mom, I believe you said, why would these horrible things happen? Well, because God wills it. So now you're not only justifying these horrible things, but you're praising the guy who does these horrible things. Like, those are major problems. And those are things that you can avoid just by rationalizing and working through these things. There's nothing to be ashamed of there. You just find ways to improve your own thinking, your own life. I'll bring you back on for a second. Does any of that make sense to you?
That actually all makes sense to me. Yeah, and I think I'm going to take out what you said and just sit down and meditate for 3 days and see if something if I can completely sever this thread that I'm hanging on to. Thank you for talking with me. Have a great day.
Really quick before we let you go, I have a quick. Oh no, you hung up already. I was gonna ask, I wanted to know what the point was, but hey, the reason why we kept the call on is because these are things that real people deconverting have problems with, and I'm glad they got to hear the answer, because my answer was exactly as compassionate and meaningful as it would have been to anybody who was serious, and somebody will benefit from it.
They're banned.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it's whatever.
I think the Zelda flute song was the kind of the thing that sealed the ban on that. Yeah.
Oh no, it gave it away hard. I wanted to ask him a couple of questions because it was like, all right, so this guy's a troll, but I want to ask him some questions about that. But whatever. We've got 2 callers left on the line. First one up is Keto, pronouns he, him, who says the fossil record for human and general evolution is insufficient evidence for evolution. Let's talk to Keto. You're on the line with Forrest and John. How you doing?
Yeah, hey Forrest, how's it going?
It's going really well, man.
Excellent.
So
yeah.
You say the fossil record is insufficient evidence for evolution. Is there anything you want to add to that before we move on, before we get into it?
Yeah, I would like to start by saying that the materialist ideology, there has been a few dogmatic shifts, and I think there has been a real ideological capture in the scientific community to the point where we can't really take the fossil record at face value. You know what I mean?
No,
I
but
don't.
Also, yeah, I don't buy that.
I mean, no.
But also, I just want to point out that, the fossil record is not the only, nor is it the strongest evidence we have for evolution, right?
Well, you know what they say. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. I'm gonna be tearing down the entirety of evolution, and we got to start somewhere, right?
So you picked the easiest one to argue both ways on?
Well, no, because remember our other calls, and even with Matt, I already brought on the harder one. So now we're getting there, right? A brick at a time.
I don't remember. I remember I talked to you before. I genuinely don't remember what we've talked about before. But
so I was talking about. I was referring to a figure in the Campbell biology textbook where there were clear hairline fractures down the side of the skull. And then you're telling me you got to research about taphonomy and stuff. And then I went and researched it, and now I'm back with more solid evidence to support my claims.
Okay, sure. So you talk about the fossil record not being sufficient evidence for evolution. Is there any particular? Let's pick a phylum, or not even a phylum. Let's just pick any taxa, any taxon that we can stick to.
What does that mean?
I vote. So a taxon is a group so when we do taxonomy, when we organize life, life, domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. And so any one of those individual levels of organization is a taxon. And so if I pick the taxon of, like, say, for example, let's say cetaceans. So cetacea is the order that includes whales, porpoises, and dolphins, right?
Sorry to interrupt you. For the sake of brevity, can we just refer to taxa as kinds? Can we just refer to that as that? Because I think that would just be more helpful for me.
It wouldn't be helpful at all, and it makes it like really incredible. To say that makes you sound like a troll. So I wouldn't recommend doing that in the future, because kind is a meaningless word that can be applied to absolutely anything, and creationists use it disingenuously to try to arbitrarily differentiate between different kinds of life, different groups of life, to say this is a kind, and the word kind stretches all the way from genus all the way up to like class. It's a lazy, worthless word. So taxon is the actual scientific term, and it actually has meaning, and it is as variable, if not more useful, than kind. With that, let's talk about cetaceans. Why do you think that the fossil record is insufficient to demonstrate evolution? I'll be using cetaceans as my model.
Okay, so if you're going to go with cetaceans, I'm going to go with Lucy's skeleton. Do you know what Lucy is? The Lucy skeleton?
Yes. So you're going with one individual specimen as opposed to an entire clade?
Well, yeah, it's the most popular one, of course.
That's certainly not the most popular one, but sure. So you have one individual skeleton, one individual partial skeleton, one specimen of one individual the skeleton of is a one species.
Skeleton. Yes. Partial.
Yes. As pretty much every fossil ever would be expected to be. Yes.
No.
Yes.
I don't agree. Okay.
You don't agree that a fossil is more likely to be fragmentary than a complete, perfect skeleton?
Well, actually, yeah, that's actually the crux of my entire point, Forrest. That's the reason why the fossil record, we can't really take it for face value. You know what I mean?
So you think that because we only have... I'm starting to remember why we ended the last call. So you're saying that because we don't have a 100% complete, perfect fossil of every single bit of every single bone of every single creature that has ever lived, we therefore cannot rely on the fossil record? Is that what you are saying?
Yeah, more or less.
Okay, that's dumb as shit. So, you clearly haven't taken the time to learn anything at all about taphonomy or how fossils form. I don't think you're serious, and I encourage you to try actually thinking or become a more interesting troll, because this is either the most lazy thinking that I've seen on the show so far, or you're just genuinely bad at being funny.
Yeah, not quite. Gleason, I will say...
I dropped.
Did we lose him?
No, I dropped it. I'm done with it.
Right. I'm not sure what he was going to ask me, but I seriously doubt his level of knowledge on any of this, and I don't know. Whenever somebody comes, to me and is like, "Oh, you need 100% of the skeleton in order to make any kind of conclusions about it," that's just not how archaeology works. That's not how any science would work.
I would encourage this, but that's the thing, man, is can you honestly, seriously sit here? I would love to know how keto thinks bone markers work. You know what I mean? How can you read bones if you don't have the entire skeleton forever? Then how can you read bones in anything? In modern humans today, we can use bone markers and we can learn about human life in modern humans today. How would we do that without the whole skeleton? How is it that we are able, with just a couple of femurs, to know a little bit more about this person's life history if we don't have their entire skeleton of every single human? It's just so lazy.
Right. And another thing is that he's totally disregarding the fact that, like, we don't just have one Australopithecus like skeleton. We have multiple skeletons, you know, and so we can build a complete picture out of multiple fragmentary skeletons. But you know, even if we didn't have that, we can make educated guesses, like, on these things. Like, I just don't understand why it really perplexes me when people have to have like 100% knowledge in order to state any kind of conclusion. Like, that's never how anything has ever worked in history.
And what's frustrating is that even if we were to have a complete, perfect, absolute fossil record, guarantee we would still have the same issue, because the reason why I picked a whole clade rather than just one single skeleton from one single individual of one single species, which is the stupidest thing in the world. Like, the reason I did that is because we can then find homologies. And so, like you said, we can even, like, you say educated guess, and I know that a lot of people are not going to understand what that means. Like, we can see a homology and say, okay, this one bone marker is only apparent. Like, the reason why I picked cetaceans, within the auditory bulla of cetaceans, there's this one particular thickening of this one particular bone wall called an involucrum. It is a notable marker in the cetacean lineage. And what's striking about it is that it's in all fossil and living cetaceans have this one bone marker, and no other animals, fossil or living, no extinct or extant animals ever have this one bone marker. That's a homology. That's something we can use if we find a random skull in the ground. We're like, oh shit, this has this involucrum. That's pretty good evidence this might be a cetacean. And then we can look for other markers and see if we can also start to draw that conclusion. And like for Keto here, well, here's one single skeleton of one single thing that doesn't have every single skeletal element possible. Therefore, all the rest of the bazillions of skeletons that we have and all these different fossils mean zero. Come on. Like, it's just so lazy. So fucking lazy. Yeah. That's what gets me. Like, I have no problem. If people don't want to do the work to learn this stuff, that's fine. That's no problem. Don't fucking talk about it and have an opinion on it then. Like, I don't have strong opinions on software engineering, because I don't know shit about it. I don't know I would not even be able to tell you what I don't know, because I don't know shit about it. So I'm not going to sit here and take strong stances on it and call into a show in front of tens of thousands of people and be like, hey, fucking software engineering is wrong. And here's why. You got ones and zeros. And that means something. We don't have a complete record of every computer ever built. So you idiots, you can't make Minecraft. Like, yeah, I can't do it, dude. Man. We got one last call, and this person's been waiting for almost 3 hours, and I appreciate that, but they are an atheist caller, and so I'm sorry you have to wait till the end of the show to be taken. We got one last call, and it's Rob calling in from Crinkly Oranges. That's stupid. Rob is an atheist and wants to know, how do we draw the line between someone's identity and language? This can go in a couple of different ways. Rob, what? Hi, you're on the line with Forrest and John, and also, what are you talking about?
Hey, Forrest. Let me just, before I get started, let me just say, I'm a huge fan. I'm starstruck right now.
No, you shouldn't be. I'm an idiot.
As much as I love Neil deGrasse Tyson, evolution is way more interesting than cosmology. But,
I mean, you're right.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess I don't. Yeah, you're right. This can go a whole bunch of different ways, but I don't want to come off as transphobic. My daughter is identifies as she/him. She dresses like a boy. You know, I completely support her. Many family members.
Then he's not. Pardon me. Then he's not your daughter. He's your son, and you should stop calling him a her.
Okay, yeah, that was mixed signals right there. Like, that was confusing.
I completely understand. The reason why my initial, like, my initial question was, where do we draw the line between language and self-identity? And I'm not, like I said, I'm not trying to sound. I know it's a very sensitive subject. But how can I'm trying to figure out the way to word this where it doesn't sound like, because I completely support him. But like, give an example, like if, like I've had people get offended because like I saw the body of a female, I grew up, looking at, I know we live in different times than when I grew up, but I see the body of a female, I cut the umbilical cord of my son, so I mean, we even dressed him in dresses when he was a baby, so like,
As you would be expected to do.
I guess my question is, where do we draw the line with language? Like, if someone sees me and says, "Hey, that's an ugly person," well, ugly is an adjective. Why can't I say, don't refer to me as ugly, I'm handsome? That's my adjective. Like, where do we draw the line between language?
You can. If anybody comes up and is like, "Yo, ugly," I mean, I feel like you can definitely be like, "Hey, don't say that to me." Like, that's rude. Like, I guess I don't understand. I don't know. Am I just missing something very basic here, Forrest? Like, I guess I don't understand your whole question here.
The thing that I'm getting from it is that like you're having a hard time because you grew up with your son and you are used to referring to your son as a daughter. You are used to referring to him as a girl. And now that he has come out with his identity and has trusted you enough to tell you who he really is, you are now struggling with separating sex from gender in your mind, and you're making that his problem, and that sucks. So like, I encourage you to just do better.
It does. I agree. I
encourage you just to try harder for your kid. And so like, and the thing is, you ask, can I identify as with not being ugly and all those things? Like, an adjective is just a descriptor that other people can apply to you, and that's not up to you to decide. You don't like that. You being ugly or not is not a part of gender, nor is it a part of individual identity. When we talk about using gender terms, you are talking about someone's actual identity as a human being. You're talking about who they are and how they are telling you what they are. If someone comes to you and says, "I identify as beautiful," you know what? Good for you. You should have some self-respect. But that's not the same thing at all. That beauty is a social construct, but not every social construct can be treated the same way. And so the idea
and that's why I called in, because that's what I called in, because that's what I struggle with. I struggle with separating language. Like a pronoun is also a descriptive term. It's also like so like that's just basically what I struggle with. And
it is
my
is
kid doesn't have no problem.
It is descriptive. It's not prescriptive. Yes, but that's the thing you need to understand is that there are plenty of social constructs, right? There are plenty of social constructs. Gender, race, money, marriage, plenty of social constructs out there. You can compare any two of them, and see that they have completely different rules. Sometimes they behave similarly to gender, sometimes they don't. Take, for example, race, right? Race is a social construct as well, but it isn't appropriate to root that in self-identification because, like gender, race is something that is it's contextual depending on the circumstances of your birth. It means different things to different people in different cultures and different times. Like, it's completely arbitrary. It's based on arbitrary sets of rules that are culturally agreed upon. Like, those are things that unite it with gender that make it similar. But unlike gender, which is rooted in individual identity and cultural beliefs and practices, it's based largely in ethnicity. And it has like deeper roots of different kinds of trauma. They're similar in that they are largely based in socioeconomic status and power. They're dissimilar in where they are derived from and how they work. Same thing with marriage. Or money. Money is contingent upon your circumstance of your birth It can mean different things to different people in different times, different cultures. Those are all things that make it common with gender. Unlike gender, it's completely external. It's completely based on group agreement, based on external factors. Your relationship with it can change arbitrarily based on individual personal decisions, either by you or somebody else. So just because these two things are constructs and just because these two things are language dependent doesn't mean that they should be treated the same way. And when you're talking about gender here, you're talking about your son's identity. You don't need to be saying, okay, well, where are the language lines? You need to be saying, how do I best support my son?
Right.
Yeah, Rob, I guess the entire premise of this call I'm having a little bit of trouble with, and it seems like maybe Forrest has a little bit better grasp on this, but maybe you can help me understand. But, I come from the South, and a primary thing that I was taught was, respect. I have a 15-year-old son, and I respect him at least enough to where I'm not abusing him like my parents abused me. And I treat him with the respect that I would want to be treated with or shown. I guess my question is, do you respect your son?
Yes, I do. Very much.
Okay.
Support him in every way.
Now my right. I get that. Now my question is, why does this even fucking matter? If you respect your son, why does it matter how your son identifies? Why can't, I guess I just don't understand the need to distinguish between your son's identity and the language you use to speak with your son. Like, if my son says that, Dad, I don't like you referring to me in this way, then I am going to do my best to respect his wishes and refer to him how he's going to want to be referred to. So it literally doesn't matter how I feel about language or feel about the larger identity of a person or anything like that. It's more about respecting your child.
I don't want to make this about my child because in society as a whole, in general, I guess what I always come back to is if I there's a guy that worked at a dispensary that I go to quite often that got mad because I kept saying he, but she hasn't transgendered yet. She hasn't did the surgery and it, on the outside appearance.
Why does that fucking matter, Rob?
And
why does that fucking matter?
Rob,
we got it.
It's difficult, man, because Rob, it doesn't matter if somebody's had a surgery or not.
No, this is what I'm saying. I guess it matters to me as to what degree do I have to participate in your self-identity. I get it. You feel comfortable referring to yourself, but to what degree, Hold on,
Rob, I'm going to stop you. Sorry, Rob. I know where you're going with this. I'm going to stop you right here, and I'm going to go back to what I said. It's all about respect.
Okay.
I am of the persuasion that I afford people the respect that I would want to be afforded. If I don't want someone to refer to me as a little bitch, then I'm going to tell them, don't refer to me as a little bitch. If someone wants you to refer to them as she or he, then it seems that you should refer to them in the way that they want to be referred. I feel like this is like a remedial class on how to interact with another person. If you come up to me and you tell me that you identify as a man, or in India, you indicate to me that you identify in a certain kind of way, how would you feel if I just started referring to you as a she or any other gendered sort of pronoun?
Or by not using your name.
Right. Any kind of way that totally disrespects you as a person and how you are wanting to be referred to as. How would you feel about that? Try to put yourself into that person's shoes.
Right. Okay. I see you guys' point.
Right.
Yeah.
Because like, what if I came up to you and it's like, oh, I get it. You want me to refer to you as a man, but you kind of look like a little bitch to me. So I'm just going to refer to you as a little bitch. And you know, somebody continuously refers to you as, hey, little bitch, all the fucking time. Wouldn't that grate on you? Wouldn't you feel disrespected? Wouldn't you feel a certain way about being called a little bitch all the time?
Yeah, I would. Yes, I would.
Okay.
Right.
Then put yourself in the position of whoever that you're talking about, whether it's your son or whoever it was you were talking about before. And every time you misgender that person, imagine calling them a little bitch. And then how you would feel being called a little bitch all the time. And maybe you can understand how they might feel.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah,
makes sense.
The thing is, for me,
I just been struggling with it. That's all.
Well, and
No.
I can understand that. Here's the thing, man, is that like I appreciate the fact that after we corrected you the first time, you've been using your son's preferred pronouns and you've been referring to him as your son this whole time. You corrected yourself. That means a lot, and I respect that out of you. But then, what's important to I like acknowledge here is that every other problem you brought up has not been an issue with identity, has not been an issue with trans people, has not been an issue with any of these things. It's been an issue with your own personal comfort. And that's what I'm hung up on. What I think you should reflect on is the fact that you're talking about, well, where's this line of where my line, what should I really be doing? And also, it's no different than if you came up to me and said, hi, my name is Rob. It says here on the call screener, Rob. If I call you Kathy this entire time, it's just a dick thing to do. It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. It's not like this big, it's not like I'm hitting you. It's just shitty. And if this is something that really matters to somebody, like this is their identity, you are fundamentally disrespecting them and dehumanizing them by taking away their identity. You're telling them, I don't care what you tell me about yourself. I have decided, because of whatever comfort level I have, who you are and what I'm going to call you. And that is fundamentally not only disrespectful, but dehumanizing. And you're talking about this person that you had a bad interaction with out in public. Yeah, because you were disrespectful to them because they said, hey, here's how I want you to refer to me. And you said, well, you haven't gone through this expensive, traumatic, painful thing yet, so I don't have to. And that's your arbitrary line that you drew for your comfort and your worldview, rather than just listening to this person, politely telling you who they are and treating them the same way you would treat me. If I walked up to you and said, hey, my name's Forrest, I use he, him pronouns, you wouldn't ask me, well, what surgeries have you had? You would say, okay, hi, Forrest, and you would refer to me as he, him. So I think you should just reflect on like what's more important here. Is it your comfort that's more important? Or is it dignity and humanity and treating everybody with respect, especially your kid? I think that is where you should be putting your attention and your focus, and what you should be reflecting.
Forrest, I don't want to like say that, like, because what had happened was, like, in the whole interaction, it was from the external viewpoint. You know,
Sure. This person told me, "Hey,
I'm a girl." You know,
did you correct yourself?
Referring to them as she. I corrected myself. You know, but
Perfect.
The thing is, like, from the external point, like, immediately, like, my first initial, like I said, you know, my son, I used to dress him as a girl. You know,
then you made a mistake. I had, when I was in middle school, I had real long hair all through middle and high school. I had real long hair. And I'm not a big muscular guy, right? I'm 6'2" now, but I wasn't always. I was a little dude with real long hair. I got called she and her and girl and stuff all the fucking time. And I would just be like, yo, I'm a boy. And people are like, okay. And then move on with their lives. That's all it is. That's fine. There's no problem with that. You made a mistake. You could do that to a cisgender person. It happens. People out there look like a different gender than they are because of whatever, of a million different reasons, and you make a mistake and you apologize and you move on and everything's fine. It's all about trying to do better and trying to learn and trying to make sure that you're not an asshole. As long as you're doing that, you're on the right side of history. You're doing just fine.
Yeah, and that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to be an asshole or dick to anybody or anything like that. You know, like, I just want to, you know, I just want to be able, I just wanted you guys to touch on that, like, just because, like, I struggle with that. On a day-to-day basis.
You should do the same thing. If you misgender somebody, you should do the same thing as if you pronounce their name wrong, or if you insult their appearance accidentally, or say something, any other social taboo, apologize, correct yourself, move on. And if it's a persistent, consistent issue over and over and over, then you're an asshole and you need to fix that. But if it's an honest mistake, it's an honest mistake.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify:
are you prioritizing your own comfort, or are you prioritizing that other person's, actual preference and respect? John, what were you saying? I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I was just gonna clarify that, like, my whole rant about being called a little bitch was more about, trying to propose a way of thinking that is, I would think that most people would, take offense to just some random person calling them a little bitch, and so, like, I was just trying to think of something that would definitely offend somebody, and trying to put yourself into their shoes as a way of you, like, considering how another person might feel, because it kind of seemed like you were trying to justify, like, it seemed to me at the time that you were trying to justify not adhering to a person's identity and calling them a certain way because you perceive them to be a certain way. I get it. I understand now. No, I understand now, but my entire purpose behind it was to try to get you to put yourself into their shoes and try to see it from their perspective. And because I do that regularly with a lot of people, like if I'm in a situation, like, how would I feel, if this were to happen to me? And so that's why, I tried to, address people in the correct way. I try not to, address people in different ways and all this other stuff. I try not to make fun of how the people look and that kind of thing. I slip sometimes, but sometimes
you guys are totally right. It doesn't fucking matter if they have a surgery or not. It doesn't fucking matter. None of that shit fucking matters, but I just struggle with that. I've seen people get offended on the first instant, without even, hey, just let me know first, I see something different,
Yeah, then that's on them. And some of it's justifiable. If you live in a world, it just so happens that trans people are more than 4 times as likely to experience physical and sexual violence than cis people are. It just so happens that we have laws being passed in this country that directly target trans people. It just so happens that we have a government that is now yeah, it freaking sucks. The president of the United States just put out an executive order that trans people don't fucking exist. And so, it makes sense. It makes sense when you're living in a world where you are constantly the victim of systemic oppression and normalized violence, that it would take a pretty significant toll on your mental health, and you might be a bit snappy sometimes. So, forgive them. And if they're just being an unruly asshole, don't talk to them. But, at the end of the day, I think that just the law of respect is always a good thing to fall back on. And I think you're on the right track. You just got to continue to evaluate yourself and make sure that you're not prioritizing your comfort over other people's dignity, which is an easy thing to do when the whole world is changing around you and language is changing around you and our society. It's easy to feel like that's a big major change and you're uncomfortable and it's scary. But I think if you're a good person, you will continue to challenge that and challenge yourself and try to make yourself better for everybody else, because I guarantee this world deserves the best of you, and your family does too.
Yeah. I'm going to say this. My son knows way more about it than what I know. He told me about pansexual, which I didn't even know that was a thing. And then I read it up. I looked at it. I was like, well, my baby, that was bisexual when I was growing up.
Yeah, and even that, because the issue is, because sexuality, because sex, gender, and sexuality are different situations, but sexuality is a great way. Yeah, and sexuality is a great way to think about this, because even though it's different from these things, it is such a good model because it is so personal and so vivid. It's next to impossible to succinctly and reliably condense somebody's all the feelings and all the emotions and all the different urges and all these things that they have about sexuality, to boil all of that down into one single term and then expect to reliably be able to apply that term to another person and have it mean the same thing. It's insanity. There sometimes isn't a solid single term to describe someone's sexuality, and they're a little weird, and they're like, I'm kind of this, I'm just kind of in the middle, I'm just me. And gender's the same way. And so when we look at these things, everybody who identifies with these terms is also synonymously defining these terms for themselves a little bit. Because as we talked about, these terms are not prescriptive, they are descriptive. And so I think when you're talking about this stuff, having that context of sexuality is a great way to say it. It means different things to different people in different cultures at different times. They vary from generation to generation, sometimes from person to person. And it's your job to do your best to try to keep up, because the world will be better and safer and happier if you do, and you'll be an asshole if you don't. And with that, Rob hung up in the middle of that. I don't know if his call dropped or if he had a bad connection or if he was just sick of listening to us. I don't know. But
he dropped.
I think it was a productive call. He dropped. Okay. Yeah, I think it was a productive call no matter what. What a good show.
I agree.
We covered a lot of stuff.
It's a great show.
A lot of stuff. John, do you have anything before we proceed to fuck off that you would like to shamelessly plug or bring up or anything like that?
I just have to say, never have a bad day.
Yeah.
I forgot.
Nice hoodie.
Forgot to show that off at the very beginning. I mean, I don't know. I feel like tonight's show had a good mix of good calls and then some trolley calls and all that kind of good stuff. But everybody try not to just be a dick to other people. I don't know. That's what I got to say.
Be not a dick. The first law
be
of the
not
line.
A dick.
I think honestly, overall, this is going to go down in history as one of the shows of all time. We really covered a lot of stuff, and I hope everybody enjoyed listening to it. I want to thank all of our callers, even the shitty, stupid ones, because we still got good content out of you. You're still growing the channel. We still get tens of thousands of views on every single one of these shows. We are still reaching the masses, and we still get plenty of calls telling us that we help people in their deconstruction. So thank you so much for tuning in and being an exciting part of the line. Thank you. We need fans like you. Thank you so much to our call screener, Stephanie Helms, as well as anybody else who helped out on call screen today. Thank you so much to our mods in chat. Thank you so much to all the other people in chat. Thank you so much to Faye Halo for doing the timestamps so reliably. And thank you to everybody who watches these shows, all the people that tune in and listen to us ramble about religions and why we don't have them. And with that, I'm Forrest Valkai. That's John. Have an awesome rest of your day and never stop learning. Bye. Bye. We're in little boxes now. We live here. You can't escape it. Hey, go print out some of these little red cards and leave them around your town. Remind people that they have their constitutional rights. Resist.